Rick, one conversation I want to have today, and this is going to get some headlines, is I want to know what you think of some of today's top wrestlers, because there's a few wrestlers you've really never evaluated. And, as the greatest performer of all time, I think your opinion is the gold standard for how these guys should be rated. Never mind that 5-star crap. I want to hear what Ric Flair has to say. So let's start with Kenny Omega, who just dropped the AEW World title at their pay-per-view to Hangman Page. Kenny's had, all these great bouts in Japan with the kata. He's been the top guy in AEW pretty much since he got there. What's your take on Kenny Omega as a worker? What are his pros and cons?
I don't see a weakness. And after being in Mexico with him, when he wrestled Andrade, I became even more impressed because seeing someone on TV, being around him, meeting him socially is one thing, and he's a wonderful kid. But I think the fact that you mentioned he's wrestled everybody, every style around the world, and that's what it takes to really become a top guy in this business. You have to have had different opponents with different styles. And I mean, I put he and AJ Styles and Randy Orton. I mean, they're pretty much. There's a lot of good ones, but I put those three pretty much in a class of their own.
Well, you bring up.
Like I take the Young Bucks and the Usos as my two favorite teams. I mean, they're not a different style than Tully and I, but for the way wrestling is put together today and the way the guys are taught to entertain, I think the Usos are phenomenal, and the Young Bucks they do some stuff I've never seen. So
Yeah, I agree with
respect all of them.
I agree with your evaluation of the teams, and we'll get back to them in a minute. But let's stick with Omega for a second, because I agree. He's kind of a rare breed, a disappearing breed, because he has worked everywhere. You get a lot of wrestlers now who only work in one promotion, in one country, one style. They don't work all that many matches per year. And it kind of, I don't want to say it stunts their development, but it's a different kind of development.
It's totally different, and it's unfair, really, to judge a lot of these kids because they haven't had the opportunity to wrestle anywhere. As an example, at NXT or for the WWE, and how many different opponents are you allowed to have? It takes 5-6 years of being there, and then of having so many different opponents. That's how you improve as a performer. And certainly the people, if you're really good at what you do, they learn a lot from being in the ring with you and from your experience.
One thing where I was a little, not doubtful, but I had questions about Omega when he came to AEW. Japan's a totally different style, very physical, very athletic. The matches are all very long, and it's a different psychology. But he came to America and adapted seamlessly to all that, didn't he?
Yeah, and being the fact that he survived Japan will tell you how tough he is. Because if you're wrestling over there, it's not like it was in the 70s and 80s by any means, but the kids are tough. They're brought up tough. They go through these dojos. I mean, there's nobody over there holding their hand. If you want to break into business, even to this day over there, you're gonna pay the price. And I mean, they're gonna test you mentally and physically.
Now, you mentioned Randy Orton and AJ Styles, and I 100% agree with that. And the term I use to describe those two is foolproof. They've been involved in some stuff in WWE that I haven't been crazy about. Like, I wasn't a big fan of Bray Wyatt in the Fiend character. I thought that character was so cartoonish, it damaged guys he worked with, but it didn't damage Randy, and he made it work. Like I said, he's foolproof, isn't he?
Yes, and like I've said before, Randy might not be able to do everything AJ can in terms of the aerial stuff, but what Randy can't do, he can take. If that makes sense to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
He can work with anybody, any style.
he could work with anybody at any style. And, if the great ones, and just like towards the end of my career, I was put in roles where I had to survive, you got to go with the humor. If they want to put you in a humorous role, I mean, look at me. They put me in a nut house for a month. I made it work. but,
I
but probably a good reason.
Yeah, I thought that was a shoot. I was going to say.
A lot of people thought that. Now he's normal.
Well, Randy, like you said, can make anything work. And moving on to AJ, I think he's foolproof as well. And he's another guy. He went through the ringer in Japan. He worked at Impact. He's worked everywhere, worked Indies, worked Ring of Honor, and he's excelled everywhere. And I think he's grown as a performer because of that. I think a lot of wrestlers would do themselves a ton of good by working in so many places, but I just don't think that's the way the business is ever going to be again.
I don't think we'll be either. But AJ, I'll tell you this: for my money right now, AJ is as good as Shawn Michaels.
Really, that expand on that a bit, Nate, because that's a pretty big statement.
Well, they both prove you don't have to be the biggest, but they can wrestle anybody big. Like Shawn's great matches with Taker and whoever else. I wasn't a big guy, but I could work with anybody too. And I mean, um, not everybody's going to be 6'5". Not everybody's going to be built like Lex Luger or built like some of the young guys today with tremendous physiques. AJ's got a really good physique. He looks like an athlete. He carries himself like an athlete. And with Randy, you just watch Randy walk down the aisle. He doesn't do anything flashy, but you're looking at a world class athlete. And the same for Omega. I mean, some guys just carry themselves, and I call it God. I mean, you could just tell when a guy is standing there getting ready to tie up with it. It's language. I call it body language. To be great, you never have to you can never let the fans see you drop your arm, drop your guard, or body English and body language is so important if you want to be called great.
I agree with all that. Why do you think AJ didn't get the career break? Well, the break with WWE rather, until he was relatively late in his career. Honestly, Nate, I'm going to say it's because he sounds so Southern, and that is a black mark in WWE. It just is, always has been.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll tell you this: I was there the first night came out, and you would have thought he'd been there forever because he blew the roof off the place. Clearly, the fans knew who he was. You know what I mean? And he hasn't let them down since. And with that aerial attack that he brings to stay, I know he's had injuries, but to stay as healthy as he stayed during most of his run at WWE is a miracle. Because
Now,
these kids put themselves through. I wrestled 365 days a year, 5 years in a row, with maybe 1 or 2 days off in 5 years. But I wasn't doing moonsaults off the top onto a table and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I couldn't have learned to do that if that had been necessary. Just like with Steamboat, I always say, if moonsaults had been in it, Steamboat would have been doing them. You know what I mean? That wasn't what happened in our time. But the kids put themselves through so much physically, the men and the women both, that it's a miracle that they stay in one piece. I mean,
what
absolutely.
what's your take on Roman Reigns, who is the top guy in WWE right now?
I think Roman's awesome. I think he's awesome. He's got the look. He's a tough kid. He's a real athlete. I know I hate to use that terminology because I'm not offending anybody else, but you play D1 sport, and you come up from a family like his, you've got to have a lot of, the word is grit. And he's an incredibly handsome dude, man, with a really good body, good physique, and his psychology's gotten like just better. I felt horrible. I actually thought that there was something going on that day that he announced that he had leukemia, and I went, my God, I was shocked. You know what I mean? To think that he had battled that, but he's come back from that. He made it through COVID, thank God, and that because if you have a pre-existing disease, the COVID has made it worse for a lot of people. But I think he's a fantastic guy. He's a flagship guy. The
No,
flagships. Can I bring it up as well?
of course, I want to hear it. No
Bring
flagships. Go ahead.
It'd be the Queen. Be the Queen.
Oh, no question.
Or, Queen or Sasha. I'm really high on Sasha. You know what I mean? I'm never going to take. I would say they're tied. But
Well, I think Charlotte and Sasha are two of a kind. I think they stand alone. I would like to see Dr. Britt Baker get involved wherever and whenever with those two, because I think she can be in a class with them. But I agree. I think Charlotte and Sasha are hands and head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah, and before we get screamed at, that is not taking away from anybody else's skills. At every sport, at every event of any competitive nature, someone is going to be better. And you know what? If I don't know the difference, nobody does.
That's
Okay.
exactly right. That's why we're doing this podcast, Nate. You tell them.
No, I'm just telling you. I mean, people hate it, but they're some people are just better.
No
And
question.
that doesn't mean the other ones aren't good. There's a huge, huge difference between the word good and great. Great is a word that should be bestowed on maybe in both companies, maybe 8 people.
Yeah, I agree. It's like all the halls of fame in sports, Nate. We've turned them into the halls of very good. I agree that we should designate, use the word great very sparingly, and I agree with who we've talked about so far. One last thing about Reigns. He seemed to take off when he got involved with Paul Heyman and when the Usos became part of his act. How much has Paul and the Usos contributed to his success?
Oh, I think it's been a phenomenal. It's a team effort with those guys. Number one, they're best friends. Number two, they're great guys. Number three, they're family, and they protect each other, look out for each other. And Paul brings all the wisdom, the knowledge, and Paul just plain is going to he gets heat with me. He thinks he's a better talker than me. No way, Paul Heyman. No way. You're always going to be number two or three. Oh, Piper's gone, so number three or two.
Now, I want to talk about two guys that AEW brought in. They brought in Bryan Danielson and CM Punk, who were certainly stars by any definition of the word. But what have they contributed to AEW, and where are their careers at as workers?
Uh, well, if I'm looking at the ratings, I don't know what they've contributed to. Yeah, certainly, as you said, both big stars in the business, both have had a lot of success. Um, but I don't know I don't know how to answer that question because all you can do, as we do with football or any other show, is look at the ratings. And if the ratings are indicative, I mean, I think they will go up, but to me, that show should never do less than 1.1 million. If they get there once and bring in all this talent and go back, then there's something wrong.
Yeah, I agree. And you and I have talked about this before, but I want to bounce this off you here on the podcast.
That doesn't mean it's no one person's fault. But
Oh,
I'm
no, no, no.
saying, if you have that much talent on your roster and you reach that goal, and go, oh my God, we've hit the 1 million. For myself, I mean, we all live to look at the ratings, especially our segment where they're saying, how long were we? What were we on the crossover? I mean, it's an insane business that we compete in with ourselves mentally, and they compete in right now because they're in the business. But if I'm looking at the ratings in the show, I don't know what the breakdown or who does what or anything. You just say all this talent, they need to be at a 1-1, I think, and never go back and build from there.
100% agree. And to be fair, I don't know Danielson's quarter hours. I know Punk's quarter hours have done very well since he got there. But you and I have talked about this off the air, and I want to bounce it off you here on the podcast. I really like AEW. It's the only wrestling program I watch from beginning to end every week, the Wednesday night show. But I got to say, the reason I watch it and the reason I think it caught fire out of the gate is because of the younger guys and the guys who weren't overexposed on WWE TV. I watch AEW to see MJF, Jungle Boy, Sammy Guevara, Adam Page, Darby Allin, and and guys like FTR that didn't get their due in WWE, the Young Bucks who never worked WWE. And I think to recycle guys from WWE, no matter how talented they may be, is steering the promotion away from what, like I said, got it out of the gate so quickly.
Yeah, Mark, I don't know the answer to that. I watch, as you know, because I have a daughter in the business, I watch not only to watch the product, but I watch to see, what she's competing with or what our company or WWF or WWE rather, or AEW. I like to watch and see, because it is competition. Like I was switched back and forth yesterday between Seattle and Green Bay, and then whatever other good game was on. You know what I mean? You switch back and forth, but it's a comparison. It has to be. There's nothing else. And as the fans, I'm sure they're going. They all have their favorites. I feel like social media, which is something we never had, that was so demanding and so relevant to what these kids and how they think, I mean, how they perform and how they feel about themselves as individuals. It's overwhelming sometimes. You can't make everybody happy. And if there's one negative comment or one negative opinion, it's just somebody trying to get attention. You know what I mean? And they come at you under not even a real name. Give me your name. Who's they? You have an argument with your wife, right? They said this about you. I said, who's they? They said it. Who's they? So just tell me who they is. Yeah, hello they. Hello they. Well, you were doing this. How do you know that? They told me. Well, really? Okay. Well, I've got 4 wives that all said it. You were doing this. I've never admitted to anything. And I go, they. Who's they?
I'd like to get you and
No
all your
comment.
wives.
No comment from you.
I'd like to get you and all your wives on Twitter together. How would that be?
I love that. Woo, and I can tell you this, and none of them are remarried. There's only
Now,
one
now,
Jim. There's only one Jim Dandy out there, brother.
now, you mentioned the Young Bucks before, and one thing I want to say about AEW is I think they've revived tag team wrestling to a degree. You got FTR, you got the Lucha Brothers, you got the Young Bucks, you got Santana and Ortiz. And it reminds me of like the 80s in the NWA when you had tag teams that got together, stayed together, wrestled like tag teams as opposed to just 4 guys in the ring wrestling and really became identified together. And I think that's a good thing. I think every promotion needs different stuff. And it's hard to say, it's hard to believe, but tag team wrestling is now different stuff. It's off the main road.
Yeah, well, but it's still it's exciting. For me, and this is just my opinion. I like when they keep it down to 6 people. When you get 8 people, I mean, nobody. I'll make a statement that I said the other day publicly. So if you look at all the guys that have come in, if you take Brian, and you take CM Punk, whoever else come in, I guess, and Adam Cole. The one that's gotten over the best is Adam Cole. If I'm watching the show, because he's had, marquee matches, he's been in the right spot, and he's not put in a situation where there's 35 guys in the ring because nobody can get over. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
The ring is so full of talent that you're going like this, and if I don't know who they are, the audience doesn't know who they are. It's impossible for a person to become a star in a scenario like that.
There's a couple guys I want to bring up, and you've actually teased a few of these already. But tell me why you like the Young Bucks, because I love them too. I think they're one of the 2 or 3 best tag teams in wrestling. But I wouldn't think they're your kind of tag team because they're high spots, they're constant movement, they're really indicative of today's style of wrestling. Why do you like them? I mean, I do too, but I didn't think they'd be your cup of tea.
Well, first of all, my cup of tea is it's one of the reasons I've been able to adapt over the years is I can identify somebody being able to do something that I couldn't have done. Okay. And I can honestly tell you, I could have learned how to do a moonsault. I could have learned how to do a couple of things that the kids can do. But the stuff they do, I could never have done. I don't think so anyway. And who knows? I was a Division 1 athlete, but the stuff those guys do, similar to what the Usos and the bumps they take, I can't help but respect them. Plus, they're really nice, respectful kids. And that's, to me, I know that word respect is probably used too much by me, but man, when you got my respect, you got me. Does that make sense?
No, no, no
That,
question, no question. And I,
that, 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 that's where Sasha Banks comes into my life. She respects me. And I mean, I can't tell you that the word respect, it means more than anything, especially as you get older. It's so easy to be pushed aside, forgotten. You know what I mean? But for me to still be here, have a show like this with you, and have respect and get texts and say, "Hey, Nate, be strong." I mean, I got that from Shayna Baszler, got it from Nia Jax, Rhea Ripley. I mean, all of them. And you find out who are your friends and who respects you when things are up, when things are down. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, no question. And I like the Bucks too. I've dealt with them on
Oh
not just a
God,
few
great
occasions.
kids.
And
Yes,
here's what I like about them. I've been watching their stuff dating back to when they worked like PWG in LA, that kind of underground promotion. When they were in TNA doing that terrible gimmick, I forget what it was. It was so terrible. Of course, Ring of Honor, New Japan, and they've always gotten better. They've added the intensity and emotion as opposed to being just real clinical high spot guys, which they kind of were at the start of their careers. They sell great. They can work heel or babyface. They do good promos. I have a lot of respect for guys who just continue to get better all the time. And I don't think the Bucks have ever stopped getting better, Nate. I don't think they've ever settled.
either do I. And they've come up with several different looks that work. And I don't think there's any limit. They're young guys. The key to them, the key for them is to stay healthy.
Yeah,
Which is the key for everybody.
yeah, and as they temper their work a little bit, I think they're playing into that because there comes a point where you don't have to do necessarily all that. Although I know they take pride in it, but you got to pick your spots. I think they're real smart kids, and you're right. That
Mhm.
bodes well, kids. I mean, I'm saying that because I'm 60, and that bodes well for their longevity. Now, another tag team that is my cup of tea in every way is FTR.
Yeah,
Uh, they have
absolutely.
they have high regard for Arn and Tully.
Yep.
They work like Arn and Tully. They work just the style I like in tag team wrestling. And one thing I said on Twitter, and Dax Harwood said it was the tweet of the week. He said I was the smartest guy on Twitter that day. That's before he blocked me, but that's another story altogether. Uh,
Well,
the,
that's one.
Dax Harwood, Dax, he blocked me. I can still get heat, Nate, no question. But I think he's a good guy, and I think they're a great team. I actually think that he and I think wrestling a lot alike. It's just that he sees as a holy pursuit, and I don't quite. But they wrestle like a tag team, and a lot of times today in tag team wrestling, Nate, and the Bucks don't do this, and FTR doesn't do this, and the Usos don't do this. But sometimes it's just four guys wrestling instead of tag team wrestling. Do you understand what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yes.
FTR always wrestles like a tag team, don't they?
Yeah. No, and going back to their run in the WWE, those guys and the Usos had some matches that were unbelievable. Um, and they took that same level of skill, which is immense, over and they had the great matches with the Young Bucks. I mean, those guys, I mean, once again, as I mentioned before, Arn, Tully, myself, we were never Mr. America, right? But we can all work. And those kids can work.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching their matches. They can adapt to any style. They can do the Lucha Brothers. They can do the Young Bucks, and they're so believable. I think it's fair to say, and this is no knock on anybody else, Nate. FTR are the most believable tag team of the day, and have been for quite some time.
Um, yeah, I'd say that them were the Usos. I'm really big on the Usos, but I mean, I can't see the difference between the two.
No, 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 and certainly I'm not even comparing the two. The Usos are great. We've talked about them, but
Yeah, I know. I think they're great. Yes.
now let's talk about the new AEW World Champion, Hangman Page.
Uh-huh.
He's only 30 years old, never
Yeah.
worked WWE, and I think he's the real thing. I wrote in a blog today, and by the way, I'm doing a every Monday wrestling blog now at WXDX.com if people want to check it out. But Hangman Page at 30 is a real main eventer, and I don't
Yes.
think there's too many of those. I think we overestimate how many there are.
Oh, for sure. I watched his stuff. I've liked him since day one, and I think him being a champion now is long overdue. I think it's great.
Yeah,
And once again, I only know him to say hi, and I've shaken his hand a couple times, but he's respectful. But he works incredibly hard in the ring. He's got a really good looking gimmick. He's a very handsome young man, and I think he should have a hell of a run with the title.
well, him and Kenny had just a lights out match at Full
Yeah.
Gear. Just unbelievable. And, Kenny does that, but, Hangman was an equal partner in that. I
Yep.
hasten to add. And
Yeah, hey, make no mistake, it always takes two to tango, man.
no question, no question. But I got to say this about Hangman Nate. You know what he reminds me of is, and not exactly, but there's a little bit of Stan Hansen in him. He does the cowboy gimmick. He does
Yeah,
the lariat. He's not nearsighted, and he can hear, and he won't kill you. But
yeah.
there's a little bit of Stan Hansen in him, isn't there?
A little bit of Barry Windham too.
Yes, yes. Great call. Great call.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
obviously there's no.
He's not nearly stiff enough to be compared to Stan Hansen.
Oh, I know.
Well,
I know. Well, like
let's
like I said,
let's get realistic. I'm still trying to get the blade out of my forehead from one of his clotheslines.
well, it's
Get the
like
blade out.
Terry
Ah,
said to me about Stan Hansen once. He
what?
said he's nearsighted and he can't hear.
Yeah,
So, like, you're just in for a treat. He doesn't mean to do it, but he's going to kill you.
yeah. Well, wrestle him for an hour sometime and tell me about it. So if you want to be the real world champion, until you wrestled Hanson and Brody in Japan individually for an hour, you are not the world champion.
And one
I've
more
had
guy.
that pleasure about 5 to 6 times.
Now, one more guy I want to talk about today on Rate the Wrestlers is a guy I think who's been a main eventer in WWE, but I think he's still somewhat underestimated, and that's Drew McIntyre. There's a guy who paid his dues in TNA, Impact Wrestling, really honed his character after going there from WWE, came back a truly polished professional, and I like the fact that he's big. I mean, I wish wrestling would go just a little bit bigger. I liked it when it was larger than life, and Drew's larger than life.
He is. And and gifted, I don't know if they gave him that real good run for a while. And who knows that, those are questions that you and I can only speculate on. But as far in terms of ability, he's got all the ability. He has an incredible look. I mean, he's one of the Lex Luger, Kerry Von Erich
Yep.
type. He's big, he's strong, he's handsome, he's a nice guy. Um, and why they're not running with him right now, I don't know. But that's the funny thing about wrestling is it could be hot and cold. One day you're, you're in the eyes of the people that make the decisions, you're gold. The next day, somebody will see something they didn't like, and then they sometimes you have to go back down to the bottom and start up again.
Well,
And
I
it
like.
happens.
Oh, absolutely, it does, and I think that will happen with Drew because he's too good to keep on the back burner
Yeah,
for very long. But one thing I really like about him, Nate, he does very earnest, sincere promos that are very believable. I mean, we have a lot of guys yelling and screaming, and that's okay. There's room for that, but he's different and prospers at promos because of it, I think.
yeah. Actually, I don't know if you remember, but the promo that he did backstage with Shawn Michaels at a show about a year ago, where Shawn had, encouraged him to come back, and they went back. It's NXT before the main roster and all that, was one of the best promos I've ever heard. And I told him that. I called him and said, "Hey, man, that's the kind of stuff that will get you over. Not everybody has to holler and scream like Ric Flair did."
Woo!
I,
No,
I only, I only knew one way of communication.
no, I agree, and I think we
Hey,
can.
look at hey, one of the greatest interviewers of all time. I mean, no, I'm going to argue this with anybody. Is Arn Anderson.
No
He
question.
never he never raised his voice, but everything Arn said and everything that came out of his mouth, brother, you looked at it and went, "Holy shit, this guy is dead on." Only two.
Now, Nate, here's where we're going to get
If
some
they,
headline.
if they want to turn Cody Rhodes heel, they need to let Arn talk.
Well,
Serious.
I can't wait
And,
for
and,
Cody.
and and let Arn get serious. I'm serious.
Well, I can't wait for Cody to get like a second win there because I think very highly of him.
This Friday, join myself, William Regal, and the Rogues Gallery of your favourite wrestling personalities in Dallas at Super Show Live. Get your tickets at supershowlive.com.
I know you're real high on. Has deserved better for his Dolph. What's your take on Dolph Ziggler? It has underutilized.
Oh my God, my take on Dolph Ziggler is that if that market jumped on him instead of Seth Rollins, that mark would have been stretched out, tied up, brought to the ring. He would have grapevined him, stretched him, made him submit 3 times before he got back to the dressing room. Dolph is a tough kid.
But what about
Strength,
should he have got better? Should he be a bigger star?
Yeah, but yeah, I definitely feel that way. But I'll tell you what he's done. He's taken every role they've given him and made it successful. And at the end of the day, he's had a 20-year career, made lots of money, saved his money, on top of the world, and doesn't give a shit. They call him to do something, he doesn't. You know why? Because he knows he's better than they give him credit for. Nobody. I mean, once again, he's another example of a guy that you know. I'm touching the word great when he wants to be. Does that make sense? If he has a partner, like I thought he and Seth Rollins a couple years ago had some like great matches. But don't think that Dolph can't yank a guy around if he wants to. But he's happy. That's the most important thing. He goes home happy at night. He's not stressed out about it because he knows how good he is. And that's what we all struggled with for so long in our careers. We know how good we were, but and the promoter, with the minute you start getting social media and people going like this, and then people going on to Hannibal, the guy that does all the interviews and knocking everybody, and would done this and all would done that. I mean, then you have to endure that. If you're great, you're going to endure a bunch of crap. In Dolph's case, you never hear anything. He's the top rating, not the GOAT, but he's one of those guys that rises above being criticized for anything except being a really good professional wrestler.
Yeah, I'm a big fan as well. And you're
And
right.
he's the last great American gigolo. Woo!
Well, you're right about something I want to reemphasize. And I know some guys in the business, heck, in any business, my business, that are like this. They might not get what they want, but they make the absolute best of what they're given.
Exactly.
And I think Dolph definitely comes under that heading. And I think he's an immensely skilled performer. And I think it's important to look back at the end of any career, any profession, and just feel like you did the best with what you got. And I think he can do that. Now, I want to move on to Bobby Lashley, who's having a pretty good run in WWE. And he's a bit like Drew McIntyre, who we discussed last week. He went to Impact Wrestling, and I don't want to say he learned what to do, but kind of remade himself and refined himself, and was an even better performer when he came back to WWE.
Oh, I think so. I think Bobby's done a tremendous job, and I'm a big fan of MVP too, and I like the fact they get dressed up. To me, you can never dress up enough if you're professional. You never see Vince walking around in sweatpants and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Well, right now I'm wearing an Hawaiian shirt and shorts, so maybe you've come to the wrong place. But I get your drift.
But you're not in the workplace where everybody sees you.
I'll be wearing this in the workplace later, but you're making me feel worse every second, H.
No, I'm just talking about him. He doesn't. That's what I've loved about Vince. He doesn't ask you anything more of you than he asks of himself. And
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, let's stay with Bobby Lashley, because again,
Bobby. I think Bobby's very talented. I think he's a much better performer than he was the first time he was here. And obviously, the experience helped him out a lot.
Talk about that connection that with MVP, because I think that has done Bobby a lot of good. I don't think there's many better talkers than MVP. Could work when the opportunity comes up. I think that's been a real good partnership.
Absolutely. I think I'm a big fan of MVP. I was, he did a favor for me when I was on my way out. And then when I was, my self confidence was horrible. He was there, right there for me, as was Steven Regal and some other guys. I mean, just I can't. I just have a lot of respect for MVP, and I do enjoy watching those guys work. Like I like Sheldon Benjamin a lot too. There aren't too many better athletes really anywhere than Sheldon Benjamin. I got news for you in case you haven't followed his amateur career.
Nate, so we've been talking about Bobby Lashley. We threw McIntyre last week. And as we agree, they both kind of, I don't want to say got their act together, but they improved in impact and came back to WWE and have been bigger and better. Do we underestimate Impact as a promotion formula? There's more good stuff that we know. A couple performers now I love in Ace Austin and Alexander, who I think are doing. I'm never ever going to be WWE or AEW, but I hesitate to call them a breeding ground but maybe that's what they are.
Well, they very well could be. I don't watch the show, so I can't comment on that. But all I can tell
Well,
you,
right, but you know who's come from there.
exactly. All I can say is that anytime you have a chance to wrestle different people, experience different situations in the ring, you're going to get better. And walking away and leaving, as Drew and Bobby did, and going somewhere else, I think Bobby did some MMA stuff as well. But at the end of the day, if you want to be a big star, you come back to the WWE, and they both did, and they both have done very well. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Drew and a big fan of Bobby and MVP.
Now, we're going to talk about Cesaro next, who is this great
Mhm.
technical wrestler. Uh, I kind of liked him. You know, it's weird. It's a long time ago. And Nate, I'm sure you didn't see this, but I loved him in Ring of Honor as one half of the Kings of Wrestling tag team. I don't know. I mean, like, he is a very dry performer, but he's technically so excellent. What's your take on him?
Uh, well, my take on him is that he and Seth Rollins had a match at WrestleMania that was difficult for anybody to follow. Um, so I mean, once again, I'm real partial to Cesaro. I think he said to me one time 5 years ago or 4 years ago, they don't think I have enough personality to be on the show. I said, you don't ever have to open your mouth. When you can work like you do, they're never gonna let you go. So,
No, I agree with that.
he's the kind of guy I'd like you to manage him and have him as a heel, because he can do some really incredible stuff, and he's a big, strong guy. He's probably the strongest pound for pound guy in the company.
Now, why do they not do that anymore, Nate? Because it used to be so automatic. If a guy could really work and had a good look, which Cesaro does, but wasn't necessarily bubbling over with charisma, they put a manager with him, and that was that. That used to be so automatic, and now it so rarely happens.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would have, like I said, I'd love to have that opportunity, but not obviously. I'm not going to go back there, but um, I think he's just an incredibly good guy. And he does anytime you could do something that nobody else can do that separates you from the crowd, you're going to be in that position where you're in a position where you are going to catch the promoter's eye. And no matter how hard they may have wanted to dismiss Cesaro, he'll always be able to come back because he can do stuff other guys can't do. And that's what separates them. That's like going back to my daughter. She can do stuff that other girls can't do. She can do a lot of stuff other girls can't do. And that's how you separate yourself from the pack. It's very simple. People can be as mad as you want. They can say da 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 da. But when they look at you and they're forced to look at you long enough, they're gonna throw their hands up and they go, "Hey, shit, I give up. You're right. She's the greatest. He's the greatest." Does that make sense to you?
No, absolutely. And I think,
It's the fickle people of social media. I mean, and it's an unfair judgment. You
well,
know,
Rick, I think that applied to your career to a degree too. I think there were promoters and times where whoever ran the company wanted to move past you,
yeah,
and it was
exactly.
certainly attempted enough, but they just couldn't do it because you were still Ric Flair. And I think there's a handful of people in today's business that applies to as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But going back to what we just said 15 minutes ago, they're never going to be able to go past Undertaker, never going to be able to go past Steve Austin.
Now,
And to a lot of people's dismay, I'm 20 years older than them. They're never going to be able to go past me.
I think we're proving that even as we speak.
No, not Austin Undertaker, but a lot of other people who, in their delusional mind, think they can.
Now,
Let me just say something. And that's very simply because of this. If for no other reason, people will always know someone like me only because they've had to watch 45 years or no, 48 years of me on TV. If you're going to be recognizable, you're going to be swarmed with people because 48 years you've been jammed down their throats. You know,
my God,
beg your pardon?
that means you started when I was 12.
I know. I got to live to September of 2022. It'll be 50 years.
Amazing.
What a party. I'm going to have a party for myself if nobody comes.
I'll come. I came to the last one.
Of course you will.
Now, I want to move on to a couple AEW performers to wrap this up. First off, a guy who just moved over from NXT, Adam Cole.
Yeah.
It's so small, but he's so good.
Yeah, I think he's gotten over better than CM Punk or Daniel Bryan.
Oh, I do too. And they got to turn him babyface because that's the kind of response he gets. I think they're kind of in the process of doing that now.
Yeah, I wouldn't turn him. I would fight the other way. He's a good heel.
Yeah, but you want everybody to be heel because you never wanted to turn.
No, but when you find a handsome heel that can work and tell you that I'm better looking than you and I'm better than you, I stick with that guy. See, you're saying once again, what the fans are forced to, the fans should never force the promotion to turn a guy whatever they want, or a woman, or a man.
No, I mean, why do you say that? What should the barometer be?
The barometer should be let them do what they're best at. And if they're really good, as he has been as a heel, for instance, you know what I mean? It's the tweeners that get lost. And once you start changing that formula around, the tweeners get lost. They finally have made Ashley a heel. After 7 years of being on top, 6 years of being on top, she finally is a heel. And they're finally getting it. And you ride with the big players. Look at Roman now. They need to ride Roman for another 2 years like this. Why wouldn't you?
Now, how do fans get past Adam Cole's size? Because when I watch him, I forget he's small because, again, he's so good. But, I'd rather he be the exception than the rule.
He doesn't work small.
No, you're right.
He doesn't work small. So the fans are past the side already. He works big. As long as he stays tight and solid, smacks guys, and out-talks them, sometimes we all can get caught up on that size matter. They told me here's what I feel about that word. Pat O'Connor, a legendary wrestler of yesteryear, told NWA I wasn't big enough to be the world champion. I said, Pat, fuck you. And I had to wrestle Pat a couple of times for an hour in St. Louis. That was not a night off. He let me know all night long that he could end it. And he was 20 years older than me.
Well, that begs the question. Can Adam Cole be a world champ? Do you see that in his future?
Well, Daniel Bryan was a world champion. That's how I can answer that.
You don't sound enthusiastic, though.
No, I don't know the answer to that, but I just know he has a lot of talent. And as I said, it's just my opinion. But of the three guys that went together, it's really hard for three guys to all get over. If I'm watching a show, the guys, I think I'm very entertained by Punk's interviews and the stuff with MJF and that. But when Adam Cole's in that ring, to me, I like watching him. I liked watching NXT when he was there.
Well, I agree that Adam Cole has got the best response.
Hey, he's as handsome as Shawn Michaels. You know what I mean? He's got that kind of look, and he's arrogant like Sean. What more?
Well,
Sean was not 6'5" and 280.
oh, no, no, no. And I think Cole can be a world champion. And I agree with you when you say that he's gotten a better response there than even Punk and Danielson. Certainly a more consistent response. It's not
Yes,
predicated on where the show's at, like Punk in Chicago and so forth.
thank you.
But with Adam Cole, I think a big part of that is he's not overexposed. I think, Danielson and Punk are both in their 40s. Adam Cole's in his 20s or maybe early 30s. I'm not sure. And he's somebody that they haven't seen for years and years and years doing the same thing, which is why I thought it was good to turn Danielson, because that's something we haven't seen for a long time. But again, I keep coming back to youth and energy and guys people haven't seen
Yeah.
this much of before.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Another guy to talk about that came over from WWE is the former Rusev, now known as Miro,
Yeah,
in AEW. What's your take on him, Nate?
love that kid. I told him there's no way in hell he's ever getting his hands on me. No, I love the kid. He's a big, strong, impressive guy. He's limber. He's got $1 million look. He's even lost more weight now. I'm really impressed by him. I didn't like the way they brought him in. I think their first match was in a tag match or something.
Well, yeah, they brought him in with Kip Sabian as part
Yeah.
of Kip Sabian's wedding. He was the best man. And I didn't think they could have brought him in worse. But this new gimmick he has is the Redeemer.
The new one.
It's tremendous.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, it's tremendous.
And
Hey,
he can work too, can he?
yes, he sure as hell can. He's a working fool.
See, I see him as a world champ someday. And
I do too.
I don't think
Absolutely.
he's an old guy by any means. So,
No, and it just goes to prove that everybody thought, well, it's kind of like when Liz left Randy, there was a clearly different a dynamic with just Randy by himself. And everybody said with Rusev without Lana, but he's proved everybody wrong. Lana is lovely and beautiful, but he can make it without Lana being there, and he's done a hell of a job of it. And his ability is going to continue, and his momentum, it's endless for him. And he's a great talent.
now, I agree with all of that. So, and this is no knock on Lana, who I think is beautiful and a great performer. I would not bring her in with Miro. I think that's been discussed in AEW, but I just don't see the need. I think to make that kind of change, there would have to be a need. And maybe you do it later on, but not now.
I totally agree.
Now,
Yeah,
and what about,
not because I don't enjoy Lana. Well, I love that gimmick when they first started it, but I just think right now that in any kind of change would distract from his I mean, just from the fact he's growing it to be such a great star.
Miro and Lana in WWE, when they were Rusev and Lana,
Yeah.
they had a real Savage and Elizabeth vibe to them, didn't they?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. It was phenomenal. It was great. Yeah, I mean it's perfect. Who knows why it went south? I've heard different stories, but um, I mean, once again, we're talking about Rusev. I think he's fabulous, and the things that the future holds for him are limitless.
And then finally, he's currently sidelined, but former AEW champ, former WWE star John Moxley,
Yes,
who I think he's had his ups and downs, but I think he's a great performer, and I think he's real. I think he has a real connection to the fans. I don't think there's much BS about him.
no, the fans feel it too. He's fantastic. They absolutely feel it.
What was your take on the Shield when they had him and Rollins and Roman Reigns together? That was kind of a good jumping off point for all three, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, say it again.
When they had all three together in the Shield.
Oh God, I love
That was a great jumping off point for all three, wasn't
Yeah,
it? It
yeah.
benefited all of them.
what a way to come in.
Our weekly look at some current wrestlers, and we got some interesting ones to look at today. I'm curious to know what you think of Darby Allin, the kid who's partnered with Sting in
Yeah,
AEW.
I had him.
The first time I saw him, I said that this guy has no chance. He's too small. It's a little bit goofy, but you know what? He's awesome. He's an awesome worker, and he taps into that skater culture,
It's
that grunge type
unbelievable.
of culture he's just I can't say enough good about the kid.
But
He,
there's nothing you can say but good. He's a kamikaze pilot. I mean, when I watched him do that thing and dive off the rope backwards with his hands at his side, the first time I saw him do it, I came out of the chair. I mean, you talk about what we were discussing earlier about doing something that will make everybody take attention immediately. And the thing I thought last week with Sting and Darby Allin and Billy Gunn and his boys, I thought it was fantastic. How proud do you think Billy Gunn is of those two boys, huh?
oh, no question, no question.
And Billy looks like he's 35 years old. I mean, it's great. I know that I'm older saying this, and I'm not saying it's the best part of the show, but it certainly is a very entertaining part of it.
Oh,
And
no question.
and Sting, I love like he's my own kid. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Darby has gotten a good rub from Sting. I think
Oh
there's
yeah,
just enough similarity in their look and their characters, kind of the loner type deal, where it's done Darby and for that matter Sting a lot of good. But where I love the Darby Allin gimmick, and don't forget Darby Allin was Darby Allin long before he got to AEW. He did the same thing on the independent scene.
I didn't know that. No,
Yeah,
but
yeah, and this is long-winded, so forgive me, but remember a show that was #1 on TV for years called Big Bang Theory with Kaylee
sure,
Cuoco?
sure.
Okay. When that came on the air, a lot of people didn't like it because it was just, a typical, it was like a remake of Friends with different people. But
Yeah,
I said at the time, and it was proved true. This is going to work because it taps into nerd culture, computer culture, that type of thing with the four characters kind of swarming around the beautiful girl. And I said it's going to work because it's different. It's well executed, but mostly it's different. Same thing with Darby Allin. What Darby's doing, I mean, the work's phenomenal, but that character's never been seen before.
yeah. Oh, it's absolutely phenomenal. I couldn't agree with you more.
Now, how does a guy that small overcome his size?
And he's a very, very nice guy, very humble.
I've never met him, but I've been told the same.
Yeah.
But like that suicidal stuff, like the coffin drop. I mean, that's just again, how many guys have ever done something like that? That reminds me almost of that headbutt from the top, like Harley did.
Yeah, exactly. And I just hope that when he's 35 years old, he can walk.
Yeah, I mean that's a legitimate fear.
No, that's what I told Foley. I used to tell Foley, he thought I meant, I think he always like, Nick's kind of, or Mick is the kind of guy that if you're not careful with your choice of words, he takes offense to it. But I said one time we were doing a live something for a show, and I said, "You're you're lucky you're alive." You know what I mean? And I meant because of what he's put himself through, not that he should retire. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know he was upset about our choice of words in the Ric Flair book.
Yeah, that was a receipt.
Yeah, well, I know, and I actually think the description holds, but I think Darby Allin is a bit more than that. And just one last quick shout out to him. This is an obscure music reference, but when I saw his name and his character, I said, okay, Darby Crash, Gigi Allen, I'm on your side, kid. And he's done nothing to disappoint me since then. Now, a guy that's not wrestled much lately, and I'm not sure if he will again, I want to talk about Samoa Joe
Yeah.
because I think he is one of the most underrated performers in recent wrestling history.
Yeah, I like Joe a lot too. Why is he not wrestling now?
Well, he was doing announcing in WWE. I think
I
he was
saw
doing
that.
NXT, but I can't remember the last time he's wrestled. I don't know what the future plans for him are.
I don't know either. I haven't heard, but
And I don't know about his physical health either. I think that kept him out of the ring for a bit as well.
yeah, I don't have the answer. But I like Joe a lot. I was with him at TNA, and then of course I spent some time with him at WWE when I was, going over there, visiting with Ashley and all the kids. So yeah, I got a lot of time for him, and I think he's good on the mic.
Oh, I think he's
Yeah,
very
no,
good.
he's one of the few guys that when he grabbed Lesnar, it was believable.
Yeah, and when he does the real guy stuff, it's believable.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah,
series he had,
yeah,
that one match in particular in TNA with Kurt
yeah,
Angle,
yeah,
is just outstanding, and
yeah,
he's 100% believable.
yeah. And like going back to what I said last week, those Samoan kids are not only tough, but all of them can work. They can all work, and they're tough kids.
Well, his work within the context of like the Kurt Angle thing, who's a legitimate shooter and an Olympic gold medalist, was again just phenomenal. I watched that match almost as much as I watch like Flair Steamboat from '89. That's how impressed I was.
Well, let's not get crazy.
I said almost as much. Yeah, I hope Joe gets one more run because I just
I do too.
touched the heart.
He's great. Yeah, to me, he's very talented. I didn't. I knew he had an injury, but I can't even remember what kind it was. But no, he and I've talked. I enjoyed being around him. He's a very nice guy.
Well, see, I thought when he was in TNA, I thought TNA had a better run for a while than it was given credit for, and I thought he was a big part of that. I just think TNA came along at a point where wrestling was kind of at low tide, especially a secondary promotion behind WWE. But I thought some pretty good stuff went on there, and he was a big part of that.
I thought I did too. I did. I'm glad I didn't have to wrestle with him because I would. At that point, I don't know if I could handle a big guy like that. He's a big tough kid.
Now, let's talk about Rey Mysterio Jr.
He and AJ had some good matches.
Yes, they sure did. Sure did.
Yep.
Let's talk about Rey Mysterio Jr.
My man.
Well, I remember when he was just literally a kid working in ECW was the first time I met him. He was just out of his teens, and now he's still going. What a phenomenal career he's had. He's working with his son, which I know is of great reward to him. But he really, I mean, we like to say about a million performers, Nate, that so-and-so changed the business. He really did change the business.
He did. Absolutely. If Jushin Liger, if they're going to give Jushin Liger that credit, which they have, or
Right.
Liger for 30 years ago, then Ray changed it, within the last 20 years. Sure did.
Now, how did he was a guy, when I first saw him, I thought, okay, this guy's too small. How did he overcome that?
Skill, charisma, great gimmick, wonderful guy, great attitude, and a businessman. And he can do anything.
Yeah, he really can. I mean, I've never seen any spot that he blew. And he's tried so much new stuff, and he was a real innovator, even among the luchadors back when.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, he's had like 7 knee surgeries. So, it's not a rookie. He's put his body through a lot. He's not a guy that I just hope later in life isn't all banged up to the point where he's not comfortable. You know what I mean?
Well, one thing I think really helped Ray, too, was for a little guy, he had a great body. I mean, even though he was small, I mean, just his definition and his size within the context of his bulk was astounding, and still is, really.
Yeah, exactly. He's always built. He puts a lot of time into his training, his physique. But you brought up a really good point. He's really having a good time with Dominic, who is really, really going to be good. He's still, if you look at it carefully, I haven't watched Dominic lately, but when he first came up, he was working, off his left arm rather than his right. Did you notice that?
I did not, but he trained with Lance Storm, so it's hard to believe that that's the case.
Well, I think he wrestled so much in Mexico, they was working with his left arm. Yeah.
Oh, right, because they work from the left there, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yep.
Wow. I couldn't have. Well, you know what? Now that you mention it, because whenever I watch like AAA or whatever, and especially the older matches, like on YouTube or whatever with Santo, it is weird. It is weird for like 5 minutes when you see that.
Hey, I'll give you another example. The matches that Andrade and Ray had on TV were, I mean, if you start ranking the good matches over the years, that series was pretty big time too.
How much longer do you think Ray's going to go? Ray's got to be 45, right?
He'll go until
He might be older than that.
I don't know. I think he'll go until he doesn't feel uncomfortable. He's done so well. He's one of the biggest marketing guys they've ever had with the company, with the masks, and he's been able to be masked, unmasked. You know what I mean? And come back, and they never get tired of it. And he's over. He'll always be over.
Okay, I got it right here. Ray's 46 years old. That's about what I figured. You're right. I mean, in terms of popularity, he can go as long as he wants, I think.
Yep.
And I think he's going to try to stick with Dominic as long as he possibly can.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't he, right? And because Dominic will go on to become a big, huge star during his time in the future.
I would guess, and I think this has been discussed, Nate, and it makes sense. I would guess that at some point Dominic puts the mask on and continues that tradition. Maybe he's Prince Mysterio Jr. or whatever.
Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of hard to follow the footsteps and identically trace the footsteps of someone as great as Ray. But Dominic's can be successful whether he puts a mask on or not. He's got a lot of skill, and he's a big kid. He just he's just starting to fill out.
Now, I want to talk about Jeff Hardy.
My hero.
Just an unbelievable performer. What's your take on Jeff as a single as opposed to in a tag team with Matt? I think the Hardys are one of the best tag teams of all time, but I think Jeff, I mean, you can make an argument for him as a single for being one of the best of his generation.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's funny, it, and I don't mean this with any malice, but every time they try to write Jeff off, Jeff comes back. You kids can't.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
No, but I'm saying, you know, if they'll put Jeff in a scenario where he gets beat one day, you'll think, why they do that, right? And then 3 weeks later, he's back out there, and they put him in a scenario where he's winning. And you know, even though that, you know, for a guy that's such a fan of Jeff's, I don't see ever there being that lull or that slump because I think Jeff is so great. I mean, the two bumps that are the most impressive bumps I've ever seen in my life, which is once again saying a lot, is Foley with Undertaker with the cage, right? Boom. And I don't mean the one on the tape, the one where he went through and his teeth went through his lips and all that. And then the other was Edge spearing Jeff Hardy in midair off the ladders.
Oh, unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I saw that. I went, my God. And I've seen some shit. I mean, that was some serious shit. And Jeff, you know, I had Jeff on the podcast before. We'll grab him for one of these coming up in the future. But that kid has done some incredible stuff. And now look at Edge coming back now. Edge, I think Edge is better right now than he was before he retired.
I think you might be right because I think when a guy like him comes back and has some time off and is working a limited schedule and can kind of like boil everything he does down into just, you know, a match here and there, I think that bodes well. I think history's proven that, and not just with Edge.
Yeah, I think Edge could work a full schedule though. I mean, I know his contract doesn't call for that, but that kid's got himself in great shape. He looks good. His interviews are some of the best. His interviews now are better than I think at any time in his career. I mean, I love the stuff Edge is doing. I can't get enough of him.
Well, one thing that the Hardys did, and that Jeff in particular did, and I'm not sure if it's the case now because, you know, obviously Jeff's been around for a number of decades, but the Hardys appealed to kids.
Yes.
And one thing that I don't think, and Nate, I mean this very sincerely, because I work in real media, you know what I mean? And I think that gives me a different perspective. I don't think any wrestling company has ever taken somebody that appealed to kids and marketed that properly. I just don't think they get how to do it. I don't think they get how to capitalize on it. And I think the Hardys are evidence of that. I think a more recent example, when Bayley did the gimmick with the side pony when she first started out, and you saw little girls in the crowd with the side pony,
Yeah.
they should have perpetuated that as long as they could. And instead it seemed like they couldn't get away from it fast enough.
But you know, I know Bailey pretty well. I think it was her idea.
Well, then it was a bad idea.
Well, but here's the thing. You know, Bailey is one of these people that not only is a hell of a worker, but she can facilitate whatever role they put her in, she's damn good at. The stuff that she did with Bianca Belair, where they were matching to have the test of strength or whatever it was a couple years ago when Bianca first came up, I thought was some of the best stuff. I mean, you know, for two athletes, but you know, we all agree you have to have some entertainment in the show, and the stuff between Bailey and Bianca Belair was really entertaining. And
I 100% agree.
I'm a big fan of Bailey. She just she wanted to turn heel.
Yeah, it was a bad move. I'm going to be blunt. I mean, you can't, that kid's appeal is organic, and you have to milk that as long as you can. One last thing about Jeff Hardy. Even though they're in different companies now, don't you think the Hardys will finish up as a team somewhere? I don't know where, but somewhere.
Well, I don't think Jeff will ever leave WWE.
So you think Matt would have to go there for that to happen?
Oh, I don't know that they'll ever end up together. I can't predict that. I talk to Beth and Jeff, you know, once a month, maybe twice a month. We're really close friends, and I don't see her talk to Matt as much. I see it once in a while, but it's not like, man, I've had more, shocker, I know you hate it when I say this, but I've had more fun with the Hardys than was overseas tours.
Oh no, the Hardys are great. I mean,
You have no idea. I smoked cigarettes with Jeff Hardy out on the balcony at 3 a.m. when everybody else was sound asleep. I said, Jeff, I'm 57 years old. Why am I smoking a cigarette with you out here on the balcony?
well, it's funny. I communicate with Matt mostly through Twitter, and I remember when they were the new kids, and I met them, and they were like, and now I'm older and they're old too, but hey, time marches on. One last guy I want to talk about before we get to some.
Let's just look. I love both Matt and Jeff.
No question. Me too.
And my final analysis of that, I just want them both to be happy.
No question.
Yeah, and they end up together.
And they are awesome performers. No question. Always have been and still are today. One last guy, Mark Henry, is now in a part-time role with AEW. I don't feel WWE ever got as much as they could out of him, and that wasn't to his failing. I think they made a mistake. Remember the stuff they did with him and Mae Young?
I do briefly, yeah. Well, Mark, first of all, Mark and I are very close friends. He's probably mad at me right now because every time Texas gets their ass whipped, I text him, as I do Mark. I haven't heard from either one of them recently. So they're big UT guys, as you know. But Mark has had some bad injuries over the years. And I think that has sidelined him a lot. So the Mayweather, I barely remember that, but
well, it was a thing where he impregnated Mae Young and she gave birth to a hand, and it was like real lowbrow humor. And I got to tell you, I think when you have a great athlete like Mark Henry, who literally is the world's strongest man, I don't think you involve him in comedy. I think that's a mistake. And once you see that, you can't unsee that. And I kind of wonder if that contributed to him maybe not being as over as he could have been, as I thought he should have been.
I don't remember the skit exactly, so I can't comment. I just can tell you he's a good guy, legitimately, like you said, the world's strongest man, and not according to Ken Patera. That's ongoing. Every time I see Mark, I go, Ken Patera said he never broke his records.
I don't think Mark Henry likes me. He blocks me on Twitter. I don't know why.
Well, who would like you?
That's what I said, but you know what I think it might have been. I forget if it's his brother or his cousin. Kevin Henry used to play for the Steelers.
Uh-huh.
And you know me, how I talk about the Steelers, so maybe that had something to do with it.
Maybe.
I only have two wrestlers that have blocked me.
Who?
Mark Henry and Dax Harwood.
Who's Dax Harwood?
The guy from FTR.
Who?
The guy from FTR.
Oh, Dax. Why would Dax do that? I know Dax.
I don't know. We met. I thought we got along. We see wrestling the same way. Next time I see him, I'm going to ask him because I think, those guys are a great tag team.
Oh, I do too. God. Tully and I all over again.
This is the Ric Flair show, but do we have time for one quick Mark Madden story?
Woo!
I have talked at length about wrestlers who have blown me off, correct?
Yes.
Jay Lethal being the biggest example. Guess who blew me off at an indie show Saturday night? Chris Hero.
Well, see, I don't know who that is.
Well, there you go. But he was in NXT for a while, was in Ring of Honor. He did a real good gimmick in Ring of Honor with Cesaro as the Kings of Wrestling tag team.
Yeah.
But I went up and introduced myself. Hey, I'm Mark Madden, used to work for WCW. He shakes my hand, goes, hey, how you doing? And just went back to what he was doing.
Huh.
And I almost said, you son of a bitch, I made more money every year in the last 20 than you. But I just shut up and went and talked to people who like me, Nate. That's how I am. You know that.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? We can't make everybody happy, but we got to show we're having a lot of fun with it. And
oh, no question.
Anything that's being discussed here is as legitimate as it could be, and I try to give you the best possible answers.
And
I know all these guys, and I'm going to give them their due. If it's something that they don't want to hear, that's not my fault.
And don't get me wrong, I think Jay Lethal's great. I think Dax is great. I just hope we can talk that out at some point, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Chris Hero, But anyway.
Hey, folks, it's time to take your podcast game to the next level. And you certainly want to get your almighty push. My God, we have to have a push, right? We'll get that over to adfreeshows.com. Now, I'm telling you, if you're a fan of Grilling JR, adfreeshows.com has the entire episode library, and it's got no ads. 0 ads, zilch, none. Ad-free and on video starting at just $9. Did you hear what I said? $9. He spent more than that at Starbucks, for God's sakes. 2 mornings. If that's not all, folks, we got tons of bonus content, including my after-hours roundtable, where drinking was involved with Eric and Tony. You simply will not find a better value in all of wrestling. Hey, look, don't make me go red ass, because by God, you know I will. Hurry over to adfreeshows.com right now and sign up. And I thank you.
Well, let's move ahead and look to some of today's wrestlers as we do every week. And one guy we've not yet talked about at length is Bryan Danielson, former Daniel Bryan, now with AEW. Is he comparable to you as a worker? How do you see his work?
It's okay. I think
Wow, you just pissed a lot of people off because they think he's everything in a bag of chips. Okay, it's not the word they're looking for, H.
I didn't say he wasn't a good worker. I said, you asked me what I thought. I'll tell you what. I thought this is how I feel. When Hunter put him over at whatever WrestleMania that was, that made him. And he's a very talented kid. Don't misunderstand me. But you have to have one match, one place, one day, somewhere that makes you who you are. And remember Hunter, I don't know what WrestleMania that was. I think it was New York, where Hunter put him over. What number was that?
I forget, H. I do not know.
Yeah, and Hunter, who only wrestles once in a while, came out, and the match started out slow, but they ended up having a world-class match. So yeah, no, he's a hell of a performer. I don't see him as being Kenny Omega. I like him. It's just asking me my opinion.
No. I'm not asking you to say what you think. I think that he's a real good worker. I think he's at the top of the pile. But I got to be honest.
Is he a babyface now?
No, he's a heel right now.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. As a babyface, he's not Ricky Steamboat. As a heel, he's not me.
That's an accurate way of describing it, I think. And
If that pisses people off, then they just got to live with history.
Well, I can't disagree. In fact, I agree wholeheartedly. And it was WrestleMania 30, by the way, Nate. I was kind of looking it up. Triple H and Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, they tore the joint down, but that is the night that made Bryan. Yep, I like him a lot personally, but when you start asking me to talk about who's great and who's not, I mean, he's got a style. He's not AJ Styles by any means.
How much does his size hurt?
Well, I was going to say comparable size. He's a little bit smaller than AJ, I think, but he's not AJ Styles.
Well, what do you like about his work? What do you like? What do you not like? What are pros and cons?
I like his condition. I like the fact that he works hard. He'll do anything. It looks like he sacrifices his body at all odds. I mean, he throws himself around, takes some incredible bumps. That stuff is that one bump he does off the top rope. He's done it a couple times. Nothing less than incredible. Does that make sense? I don't know who he was working with, but he does that suplex where he lands on his stomach. He's a hell of a hand. But you're asking me once again, and I'm not going to budge on who I think is good and who's great. I think he's very good.
I like him better as a heel, like now in AEW. I think he's got the condescending thing down pat. I think when he's a babyface, he doesn't have half as much personality. But then again, I guess that can be said.
No, but as a babyface, it's more believable though. There's another guy. He can sell his ass off. So when he's making a comeback, for me, it's more fun to watch a guy like him making a comeback against the bigger guys. Does that make sense?
Oh, no question.
Yeah, it's harder for me to believe that as a heel, he's going to hold someone down. Does that make sense?
Especially if it's a bigger opponent.
But yeah, exactly. As a bay face, who's just average size, but really loaded with talent, I much prefer him to see fighting from underneath. As a fan.
What kind of match could you have had with him?
Phenomenal. But here's the bay face. I can't do half the shit he could do, but I can take the shit that he would give me. Does that make sense? I could have.
A perfect description, which moves on now to our next
Yeah,
topic.
no, it's kind of like Randy. I couldn't do a lot of fancy things like these again today, but I could take it. So, and sometimes taking it is just as impressive as giving it.
Sometimes taking it's more important than giving it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now let's move on to a friend of yours and mine, a Pittsburgh native, recently retired, Kurt Angle. Now, when you talk
My
about
man.
well, when you talk about great, that word 100% applies to Kurt Angle, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Great. Kurt Angle.
Well, I think Kurt is one of the very few legitimately comparable to you as a worker. And I don't say that lightly. I think he's top 5 all time as a worker.
I do too. I absolutely do. Did he ever tell you about the time I took him down?
No, but you're about to.
I'm just kidding.
So you don't think you can take him down?
Absolutely not. Hey, I grabbed Ronda Rousey one time by the arm and I said, low single. She said, try it, I'll kill you.
Let me can I tell a quick Kurt Angle story?
Yeah.
I covered Kurt Angle in high school. I was a writer then for the Post-Gazette, as you know, here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And he was a great high school football player in Mount Lebanon, a great wrestler, obviously, in Mount Lebanon, went on to Clarion and, of course, won the Olympic gold. So I was at a place called Tom's Diner, which is a late night, it's closed now, but it was a late night food spot in Pittsburgh after I was out. I was like in my 20s, and Kurt was a senior in Mount Lebanon. So we're leaving Tom's Diner, and I see a couple guys getting a fight on the sidewalk. A bigger guy looked like a football player is going after another slightly smaller guy, and the slightly smaller guy just takes him down on the sidewalk and stretches him.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I met Kurt Angle face to face.
Yeah.
I talked to him on the phone for stories. I went up, I go, hey, are you Kurt Angle?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah. And he looks at me, couldn't figure out the rest. I go, hey, I'm Mark Madden. I've talked to you for the Post-Gazette.
Yeah.
And he like kind of does double take and I go, don't worry, this won't end up in the paper.
Well, listen, I'm pissed off at Kurt, as he knows, for one reason.
Why?
When he's Hall of Fame induction, I'm the reason they went to the WWE. I ran into him in a gym in Memphis, Tennessee, and I was at WCW, and he was getting ready to decide who he was going to call and go to work for. And so he said, Mr. Flair. I said, it's not Mr. Flair, it's Mr. Angle, but thank you. He said, I'm considering WWE or WCW. I said, consider no longer. I'll call Vince McMahon for you right now, and I did. The rest is history. He would have died. They would have eaten that kid alive at WCW. I don't mean physically eat him alive, but the politics that would have been stacked on top of him, a gold medal winner who's tough, that would have been everything that WCW would be balking at.
Let me jump right to the chase, Nate. Hulk Hogan could not have beaten him fast enough.
No, not Hulk Hogan. Just I'm not going to put that on Hulk because listen, Hulk wasn't running the company. I got news for you. There was a lot of people that were running the company, a lot of voices. Hulk gets too much heat for it. The one thing I can tell you that I wasn't running the company. It's like when I was a booker that made all these bad decisions. I was on a booking committee, but the only name on the committee that meant anything was mine. Does that make any sense? And that's not taken away from anybody. But me and Kevin Sullivan, who to this day I say is a genius, could talk all day long, and Eric walk in and say we're doing this. So why are we wasting our time? You know what I mean? It's just they did what they wanted to do. Just a scapegoat. The booking committee is just a scapegoat.
Well, get back to Kurt. Kurt took to wrestling like a duck to water.
Yes.
I can never say he was green, not even for a second. He was a natural. And before you knew it, he was calling matches in the ring. A lot of guys get into it with an amateur background, albeit not as impressive as Kurt's with the gold medal. But what made him so good so fast?
Well, you know who I compare him to, and he compares himself to her too, is Ashley. Some people catch on really quick. Of course, Ashley didn't have an amateur background, but let me tell you about Ashley. That's just a side note. Reed was a 14-time state champion in North Carolina and a 4-time national champion, the Tulsa Nationals, AU Nationals. I took him to every tough tournament in the country. Ashley could beat Reed until he was 16 years old. But I mean, they went to war. Ashley was so strong and so physically gifted that he couldn't compete with her athleticism. That I mean, and of course she wanted, I had fun. All Reach friends loved Ashley and all that, but Kurt just, I mean, the only guy I've ever seen, and he never ultimately was the athlete that Kurt is, but these amateurs that come along, I mean, he's better than Jack Briscoe. And nobody was tougher than Jack. 31-0 his junior year with 31 pins at Oklahoma. I don't think that's ever been duplicated. But Kurt just took to it, and then he added that aerial game, and I mean, he's just an incredible athlete. As is Brock. I mean, I'm watching Brock on TV, really enjoying his new stuff now. I like him without Heyman.
It's different, and I like Heyman with Reigns. I think that's shaping up.
Yeah, but he's getting back to Kurt. Kurt was so diversified that he could have this phenomenal technical match with Shawn, or these great matches with Taker, and even at my age, he gave me some good matches. I don't know if anybody ever believed him, but I was so confident in him. I took every bump he could give me because I knew I was going to land the right way with him. There was never any doubt.
Well, you had a pretty good match with him. I just watched on YouTube in 2005. Do you have any recollection of that one?
Yeah, I landed in L.A. and Pat Patterson said, "You're going to wrestle Kurt Angle." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because Vince wants you to." I said, "For how long?" He said, 20 minutes. I said, 20 minutes, me and Kurt Angle? You got to be kidding me. Kurt was so mad at me because I wouldn't let him lead. We're going to my pace, Kurt, tonight. Sorry, brother. And every time you try to stretch me, I'm going to hang on to the rope.
But it was a good match.
It was okay, considering I was 56 years old.
Oh, I think it was better than okay, and I think that says a lot about you at 56, but says a lot about Kurt as well.
Well, Kurt, yeah, he made me. I mean, I just said, "Kurt, we're going out to the floor." He said, "For what?" I said, "Give me that belly to belly on the floor." He said, "Why?" I said, "So I can catch my breath." What do you think? I can't just take you down and hold you and recoup here, kid.
Now, WWE had Kurt do comedy a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Was that good or bad? He's an Olympic gold medalist, and I think he's a pretty funny guy, and some of his promos were not funny, but
he made it work. That's what makes you great. You use that word great, it's being able to survive any scenario that puts you into it and make it work. And did I like it? No, but it worked. And it was humorous. And the stuff with him and Austin was fabulous. You know what I mean?
Oh, no,
but when you talk about great, I mean, Kurt was tight. His punches, his kicks, he never looked like he was out of control. You know what I mean? You have to remember, when you get 5 or 8 guys in a ring, the camera's always on you. You can't be hitting a guy like this. You know what I mean? You've got to think that the camera's right on you every time you punch somebody. Kurt is never looking awkward. He's throwing in a good punch. He's throwing in a good kick. He stays tight. He stays close. He keeps it physical. Yet you can't feel him. I mean, he's like this. I tied up with that. I said, holy shit. The kid ties up like Steamboat. I mean, he's that good.
Now, Kurt wrestled his whole career with a broken neck, which he sustained actually even before winning the gold at the Olympics. That caused him some problems in later life. I mean, he had a great career, but boy, to take that kind of risk, I mean, I'm not saying he did the wrong thing, but I'm glad he got through it as well as he did.
I feel the exact same way.
What? That was like the blind squirrel finding the acorn, because I never thought that's would be as good as it was.
Yeah, and talking about Jim or Warrior, there's another guy I don't think had the opportunity to learn his skills before he was thrown into the fire. So that happens to a lot of guys that have a real good physique, and a promoter will see him and say, "Wow, this guy's going to be the greatest." You know what I mean? So I've seen that come and go already now in AEW a couple of times. As with WWE, some guys will come in and look really good, and then in 2 weeks they're gone with no explanation. So it requires more than just looks. It requires, a tough mental attitude, or requires more than just a physique. It requires a mental attitude, a lot of heart, and a lot of determination to be the best at your craft, to be successful in wrestling today.
Now we're going
It's still very competitive.
Okay, let's talk about some of today's wrestlers, another weekly segment. And I know you're going to like talking about this guy, Nate. MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
My man.
Very inspired by Roddy Piper.
Hey, see, he's got the big ring, man, just like the Nature Boy. Now he's got to buy one of these.
Well, I see a lot of Roddy Piper in, Max. How about you?
Roddy Piper? No, not really. I don't see that. Roddy was like, Roddy was just a boom, 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 real quick. I just spoke to his daughter last night, by the way, so I'm catching up with them. But I don't see much Roddy in him. I see more me than Roddy. I mean, I'm not taking it away from Roddy. I just asked me who I see more. I like Roddy didn't brag. Roddy didn't brag about his clothes and stuff like that. This kid is, which makes him different. Is talking about the material things. Or he implies that he has the material things that other people don't have. And that really pisses people off, especially when it's the truth.
Well, what I like about Max is he almost never breaks character, not in the ring, not on the mic, not away from wrestling, not anytime. I like that, but today, with the camera everywhere, you got to be careful too.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if he wants to be a little nature boy.
Well, no, you know what I mean. I mean, Nate, how much trouble would you have got if there was social media?
Why did people keep bringing that up? What makes you think I did something wrong in the old days? Why? Huh?
Just the hunch.
Just the hunch.
I'm there too.
Have you ever been out of me?
Yes, indeed I have. Well, no,
Merry Christmas.
Max is great. He's a heel who isn't trying to be cheered.
No, that's the key thing. You can't. I'll tell you anything. If I saw that kid sign an autograph out in the parking lot of the building, I'd never talk to him again.
I don't have to worry about this.
No, man. If he's so damn good at what he's doing, and it really catches my attention. But I've seen so many guys in the business go out, be a heel on TV, they're out in the parking lot signing autographs instead of running to the bar 100 miles an hour. They're walking around to make sure that nobody tweets about what an asshole they are by signing all their autographs. Good dumbass. What if he signs an autograph? I used to walk to the airport with Hunter. It's people think we're right or think bad guys don't sign her. The internet editor. Bad boys don't sign her.
How do you rate Max's work?
I think it's very
physical. I think he's a heel.
Yeah, I think he's very good. He works like a heel, and if he when he gets on top of the guy, which is the important thing, he stays on him. He knows when to back up. He knows when to air the crowd. By air, I mean give it a chance to breathe before he attacks again. That's a key thing too that a lot of guys understand. You got to get the people when you got a guy down and you have him down. You got it. The referee's going to break 1, 2, break. Back up. Just don't turn your back on the guy, but back up 5 feet. Give the audience a chance to breathe and get your breath yourself rather than go in there and blow yourself up trying to beat the guy up. 1 good punch, 2 good punches, 3 look 10 times better than 20 of these. But I've been saying that for how many years for these kids? 20 shit punches can kill 1 good one. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure.
No, and here's an example, which I'll tell the young kids. If there's 8 people in the ring, and there's 8 people doing something right, you don't know where the camera is. You have to protect the cameras on you. Because while one guy is over here nailing a way that looks like $1 million, there's some other kid over here with throwing punches that couldn't break an egg. Does that make sense? They have to all learn to work, especially when there's multiple people in the ring, like the camera is directly on them. And then they start to put together the ingredients where they become a great performer.
Nate, don't get me started. I think there's so many top guys in the business now, top guys on top of the card that can't throw a punch worth of.
Oh, big.
Drives me crazy. Right. Just drives me. Absolutely crazy. But get back to MJF.
If you don't have the fundamentals, and I mean seriously, the fundamentals, which are punching, kicking, eyes, attitude, and appearance, I mean, something that attracts you, you're never going to get that G for great in front of your name.
MJF's 25. Where's his career go from here? He's signed
Oh,
W through 2024.
yes. I think it goes anywhere he wants to go. I hope he has a good business manager, a good agent. Not some of a bitch like I've had in the past, but someone knows what they're doing and is honest.
So you see him as a very, very top guy.
Yes.
I know.
Yes. Yep.
Now,
Either company.
well, would WWE dilute his character? What would they do with him when he goes?
No, I said as it is. Delivered as it is. Excuse me.
Right. That's why one reason why I would be hesitant to go to AEW, excuse me, Freudian slip, why I would be hesitant to leave AEW to go to WWE. I think you have a bigger hand in the creative process in AEW. And I think for a guy who knows what he's doing, like Max obviously does, that's invaluable.
Oh, exactly. You just asked me a question. I said,
Right.
He's good enough to be good leader company.
Right.
That's all I meant. And for him, I'm not suggesting he go anywhere. I would stay with Tony as long as I could, as Tony was paid. And I'm sure Tony sees a lot in him, or he wouldn't be in the position he's in. and the thing about him, he's just going to get better. And hopefully he stays injury free.
Now, you like the way MJF dresses. You've talked about that on this program in the past. And I do too, with the nice clothes, the scarf, the tie. Mm-hmm. Why is that so unimportant in general in today's wrestling? He's kind of the exception to the rule.
Well, I don't know. I'm always going to tell you that, if I think I influenced some people, I know I have. But I like the look that Bobby Lashley does now, the MVP and the guys. It's because not everybody can wear jeans and tennis shoes. I mean, it works great for Roman Reigns because Roman Reigns is the handsomest son of a bitch alive. And Roman can wear whatever, but when Roman puts on a suit and tie, he's even a handsomer son of a bitch. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've seen them both ways. For Roman to be casual, have his work shirt on, walk out in probably $2,000 jeans and $500 pair of tennis shoes, that worked for Roman. He could pull it out. I like Charlotte because Charlotte spends a fortune, but for her it's work. She dresses immaculately. It's her gimmick, and you've got to live your gimmick, get away. But with him, not everybody can wear jeans and tennis shoes. You want to make yourself look different somehow. I mean, and that's just, we have so many people that are dressed the same, and except for the ring attire, that they all look the same. If they don't have, and they're trying to get themselves looked at and get themselves a spot with a promoter, I would emphasize either dressing, or doing something a little different with your wardrobe. It's just as essential as it is. Learn how to work in the ring.
I want to talk about Natalya Neidhart. Your daughter had a great match at NXT with Natalya. I think she's been chronically underrated. I think she's an absolute all-time best women's wrestler. And I was glad to see Natty get a little recognition for being the woman with the most matches in WWE pay-per-view history.
No, I think it's fantastic. I have a lot of respect for Natty. She knows it. Passing the torch that night to Charlotte NXT. I was there as was Britt. It was a huge night for Ashley. I'm sure Ashley will remember that and cherish that memory forever. It's the first time you get the title, no matter what title it is. In that case, it was NXT. It was a huge night, and it helped kick Ashley's career off. Without Natty that night, who knows where you fall. But it felt for her, and I absolutely was amazed because I had seen him train and all that, but I was absolutely at ringside. I was amazed at what a match they had. It was really, really good. And, I kept thinking to myself, is Ashley going to blow up? Is she going to get tired? I mean, she's so nervous. And I didn't have the words, nobody wants some dad telling her what to do, especially her. I never tell her what to do, by the way. I don't even suggest it anymore. I just pay attention. So, but they had to have a match, and Maddie, did the favor and, launched Ashley's career. I mean, I hold a lot of respect for Natty, and as I did her dad, and I've gotten to know her mom well, and I've known the family forever. So, hats off to Natty and I, and she is a great worker. She's in the great category. Yes.
What do you like about her work? Because I think she presents.
She's solid. She's solid. She has a technical background that's really, really. I mean, the thing about Natty can wrestle the kind of style that's up and down with anybody, and she can wrestle like Asuka, hold for a hold technically. She's got experience. She looks the part. She always dresses nicely, and she's got she just she's a professional, and I mean that's the best compliment I could pay her. She's a real pro.
They put Natty with Ronda Rousey during Rousey's run in WWE. How much did that help Ronda to have that steadying influence?
I don't know, because Rhonda's pretty full of herself, man. I really enjoy Rhonda, and you didn't. I think Steve took us out last time, but I really enjoyed talking to Rhonda my time with her. I think I told you guys the story, and Steve flipped it, but I said, "You think I could shoot a low single engine and take you down?" She said, "I'd kill you." So I don't think Rhonda needed anybody to back her up. I think she enjoyed and probably learned from Natty. But Rhonda's a natural athlete. I mean, she's at the same level of natural athlete that Ashley is. Rhonda does stuff or did stuff that was just she's like Kurt Angle. I mean, bingo, just caught on. That makes sense. Not the moonsaults and all that stuff that Kurt did, but technically, and I mean, it's not to say she wasn't working with great workers, which helped the situation too, because she was always in the ring with pros. As a matter of fact, I think one of the main reasons that Ashley was able to be in that match, and I'm so happy for her. I think that they needed I think they needed the best worker in the business to be in that match to make sure it was the main event.
I want to talk about some of today's stars in the time we have left, Nation. Let's start with Toni Storm, because she's had a few matches involving your daughter Charlotte, including a singles match Friday on SmackDown. She's kind of new to the big time, but she's okay, isn't she? Those matches were all right.
Yeah, she's more than okay. She's really good.
What do you like about her?
Well, I like her look, and I've done a little homework on her. I think that she pretty caught the attention of a lot of people at that all-women's pay-per-view in 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, I think you're right.
And she's got that good look, and she's athletic, and she carries herself very professionally. I like her a lot.
Yeah, I agree with the last part you said the most. You look at her, and she looks like she belongs. She carries herself.
Absolutely.
She walks the walk. She's a little green on promos, but you can tell she'll get better.
Once again, that's attributed to lack of time and lack of experience and not having wrestled. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice and it takes multiple matches with different people to raise the level of skills. But for the time she's been in the business, when I see her now, I think she fits in. I think she's going to be a big star for the company for years to come.
I agree. Now that begs the question, is it harder or easier for girls coming up, women, I should say, in wrestling, as opposed to the men? It seems like there might be more opportunity for the women if you can find a way to make yourself stand out.
That's a good question. Yeah, I want, I have to be honest with you, go right down. It's hard for either one. Does it make sense?
Well, yeah, I look at AEW where I think I love Britt Baker. I think the Doc's one of the top women performers in wrestling right now. In the top 3, in my opinion, easily. But I don't know what they have past her. And I think if any one of the women at the next level can find a way again to make herself stand out, she could slot in as a solid number 2 for months and years to come.
You're talking about Tori now?
No, I'm talking about AEW, the
Oh,
girls below Britt Baker.
yeah. Um, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that more carefully.
I know what you mean. It's tough because
Yeah,
you know what I've called Britt Baker Fabulous Moolah,
yeah.
because she's there. I don't want to say by herself, but they need to find a consistent number two, number three that she can have meaningful dialogue with. And I'm not so sure there's anybody there. A lot of people like Thunder Rosa. I'm not as sold on her as some. I don't know. That's kind of a work in progress. Uh, now when you were a top guy, having a match with somebody who was, I don't want to say Tony Storm's green, but she's less experienced than your daughter, certainly.
Mhm.
When you were a top guy having a match with an up-and-comer who had potential but was less experienced, how did you approach that? What did you tell him? How much did you take over? How much did you give him?
Well, I gave as much as I gave him. First of all, I told him to just listen to me, which is nothing that's allowed now. And I said, let's hear the crowd. Let's see where we're going. And I gave them as much as they could possibly take. Because I like selling. I like feeding the guy. If the guy had the ability, it's like, I'll give you an example of a guy that never has gotten his due for how good he was. But I had great matches with him. Brad Armstrong.
Yep, no question.
So let's say that she is Brad Armstrong, right? And I'm Charlotte. It's a question of listening, taking your time, feeling comfort, getting to know each other. And I'm sure she's very confident when she goes to the ring that she knows that she's under not only the wing, but the experience and the knowledge, of the woman I consider to be the greatest female wrestler of all time.
No question. No question. She is
And
not.
I'll bet you $1,000 if she just worked with her 2 or 3 times or 5 times on the road, it'll like I say, it'll either be her or Sasha. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think Tony Storm, given experience in the ring with women like your daughter and Sasha,
Yeah.
I think is really going to blossom. But you need to get that. You need to get it on the road. You need
Yeah,
to get it in
and
house shows.
yeah,
And learn the house shows.
Natty Neihart can teach her a lot. I mean, there are just some people out there that you can learn from faster than others. And I think between Charlotte and Sasha and Natty Neihart and who am I leaving out? I mean, it's just
Well,
there's only a few people that really are good enough to cheat you while you're working live on TV.
well, Natty heard how complimentary we were of her on last week's podcast and reacted on Twitter, but very much deserved. I can't say enough good about Natty
No,
Neihart.
and like I said, is a great teacher as well.
Now, let's move on to Cody Rhodes, who just won the TNT championship from Sammy Guevara in AEW. When did you first meet Cody? Because I remember Cody being around WCW with his dad way back when.
No, I met Cody I used to travel with Reed for amateur wrestling, and Cody was a Georgia state champion. But this is when they were both like younger. I think Cody is 3 years older or 2 years. They never wrestled each other. That's funny because I was dying for Cody and Reed to work back then, as were Dusty and I. But they were an age bracket apart where I couldn't even bump him up high enough. But I mean, Cody's just, he's a diamond, man, for me. I think the world of the kid. He's done all this on his own, had the balls to step away from it, challenge it, married a beautiful girl, Brandy, who supports him. And I talk to Michelle a lot, not a lot, but once a month I'll text Michelle, man, the kid is golden. So, it's kind of like, no, and I understand it, but I mean, I can't figure out how AEW got the Owen Hart Memorial Tournament when I mean, I appreciate Tony for doing it, but that's something that if the company feels that strongly about Brett and Owen, that's something that I wish the WWE had jumped on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but they didn't and weren't going to because of their relationship with Owen's family over in Boston.
See, I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
well, I'm proud of Tony for doing it because I never knew Owen that well, but he certainly is very respected by so many people, and I never got to know him. I never got to wrestle with him. So But I think any time that, like, like they had the Dusty Rhodes Memorial, some kind of a tournament
In a tag team tournament, NXT.
at NXT.
Right.
So, I mean, eventually one day I would bump that up to a main roster a show, because Dusty's a character and a name that'll never be forgotten, always be remembered, and as there's not going to be another Dusty Rhodes.
Well, that said, I was always disappointed that Cody never got the opportunity I felt he deserved in WWE. And I did like him as Stardust.
That's why he left.
Well, I know. I didn't like him as Stardust. I liked him when he was in that Legacy thing with Randy Orton and with Teddy DiBiase's kid. But yeah, I give him credit. Like you said, he went against the machine.
Yep.
He left and created his own machine.
Yep.
And let's be honest, Tony Khan provides the money, and there were a lot of other influences like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. We could go down the list. But Cody Rhodes is the primary reason for AEW's existence. There's no doubt about that. He pushed the button first, pushed it hardest, and he got things done.
That's the way I understand it. Yes, because he had his own little promotion going, I think, before Tony came in.
Well, yeah, he did that. He did that pay-per-view, that All In.
Yeah, and that's what I think it started Tony. And I don't know the intricacies of all that, but hey, I'm a big fan of Cody Rhodes. He knows that I text him all the time. So
Well, I think the big thing for Cody was when he first left WWE, he went to Ring of Honor, which now looks like it's going to be belly up or in a very, limited capacity moving forward. But he went to Ring of Honor, and he used the creative freedom there to reinvent himself and to help others reinvent themselves. And honestly, they picked up a lot of what Ring of Honor was doing with the Bucks, with Bullet Club, with Hangman Page, and just moved it right over to AEW. And I don't fault Ring of Honor for letting those guys go. What was going to happen was going to happen, but that's where it all started to happen. Cody Rhodes in Ring of Honor.
yeah, I didn't see that. So I don't know how it evolved, but wherever it evolved and however it evolved, it worked. And Cody is once again put himself in a very special place.
Now, what do you like about Cody talent-wise? What makes him, a top performer?
Well, I tell you, when he did the moonsault off the cage with WWE, I looked at him in a whole different light. I didn't realize how athletic it was. He's one of these kids that can do anything. And, just being so close to his dad, to see those boys, both of them be so successful, and even at different, different ages and different time frames. Every time you see, a second generation kid do well, you can't be proud enough of them, especially if you're the son of the legendary Dusty Rhodes.
Well, in the match that Cody had with Dustin, remember that in AEW on pay-per-view,
Yes.
brother versus brother?
Yes.
That was phenomenal. And the
Yep.
way they did the angle leading up in the promos,
Yeah.
it's one of the very few times brother versus brother worked. The only times that brother versus brother worked, to my mind, were Rhodes versus Rhodes and Hardy versus Hardy.
And Funk versus Funk.
Well, that's even before my time, believe it or not.
I don't know if they did it. I'm not making a joke, but
I'm not sure they did.
I don't think they did it. But that would have been classic.
Well-
No, but I tell you, no, I totally agree. I saw all those matches, and I think, it just Cody and Dustin put on a clinic that night, and I just like I say, I'm so proud of both of them. It's very hard. You can imagine how hard it is to be a second generation wrestler when your last name is Rhodes, and the pressure that's on you, and it's all the comparison. I happen to be experiencing. I've had to experience the heartache personally that my daughter went through because people just said she's Ric Flair's daughter, which is the biggest crock of shit in the world. She's the greatest because she's the greatest, and it surpassed me a long time ago. So
Now, here's a prediction I'm going to make. I think I mentioned this on a previous podcast. I think the first guy to go from AEW to WWE will be Cody Rhodes. And I have no factual basis for that. I don't know his contract status. I just have that feeling. I don't know why. I just have that feeling. And I got to tell you, there are people in that locker room that have that feeling too.
It's possible. I know they'd take him back. I'm sure they would. Hey, the name RHODES is going to be in this business until the day that the business drops off the face of this earth. And if they can bring Cody Rhodes back in, it would be a feather in their hat. It would that would speak volumes on Vince it would speak volumes for Vince to change his mind about something. Because he can have a frame of mind where he goes, I'm not going to go back there. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to revisit it. And then someone can tap on the shoulder and say, hey, it's Cody Rhodes. You know what I mean? So,
well, like I said, I'm not putting a timetable on it, but it would not surprise me. But I got to tell you, I don't know if I'd want to be the first guy to go from AEW to WWE, because you're going to get a paycheck, but you might get buried too.
I think Cody's smart enough to decipher that. I think you got to make Cody's growing up 20 years in 5 years. In terms of smarts, logistics, knowing how to promote himself, he wouldn't walk in there blindsided.
Yep, I agree with that. And Nate, that's what makes your first run in WWE incredible. Because if anybody would figure to get buried upon entry in WWE, it'd be you. You were the standard bearer for the other guys, for the competition. But instead, I mean, give Vince credit. He saw you for what you were and let you take it to the top there, too.
Mark, I say this very humbly. I was too good to be buried.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I totally agree. But that hasn't...
Who was going to bury me?
You make a compelling argument.
I left the people behind me that could bury me.
Good point. Good point. You could have got buried any worse in the new place than you had been in the old
Are you
place.
kidding? I got to hang out with some of the greatest people. As I say, I got to wrestle Hogan. I got to wrestle Randy. I got to wrestle Bret Hart. I got to wrestle The Undertaker. Are you kidding me? It was the greatest year and a half and the most fun I ever had. And I made the biggest mistake I ever made was going back.
Now, before we wrap this up, I want to talk about somebody else from the WWE Women's Division, and that is Carmella. And I love Carmella.
Oh, me too.
She has the old school WWE women's look, like Sunny and Sable.
Hey,
but she's a real solid worker, too.
Let me just put right. Corey, you have so overachieved.
Oh, Corey Graves.
Corey, so overachieved.
You know, they live right down the road from me here in Pittsburgh.
Well, call him on. I hope he hears this. Hey, cut this piece out for me. Carmella is beautiful, and Corey Graves, you have overachieved. Woo!
Well, I got to tell you, I think she's fabulous. And
I do too.
Nate, with wrestling today for women, I don't think they have to look like Instagram models, but I don't think they should look ordinary either. Too many of the women in wrestling today look ordinary, and now we're seeing a little bit of a shift to the other direction.
Carmella is stunning.
Stunning. Toni Storm's very good looking too. I think we're seeing a move back in a different direction, don't you? And that's good.
Yeah. Well, I have to look at them as if, you know, they're my daughters, but as a man, I'll tell you they're both very attractive women.
Now, you see, in AEW, that's why I'd push Ty Conti and Anna Jay, because they look the part. Britt Baker looks the part. And I said before, I don't get Thunder Rosa. I do like Ruby Soho, though, because her look's different. That punk rock thing, at least it's something.
Yeah. Well, I call her, you're talking about Ruby Riott, right?
Yeah, Ruby Soho now in AEW. Yeah, I like her look. She gets the most out of it.
Yeah, I texted her when she was wrestling Ronda one time, and Ronda started selling for her, and I texted her. I said, don't ever walk away and turn your back on someone like Ronda Rousey. You know, like I've tried to give her little tips about things, and then she'll say, God, anything you can tell me about wrestling. So I got to be on a regular texting basis with that when I saw her at the shows. But yeah, I'm happy she's healthy. I think the world of Ruby, and she's gonna do real well over there. I'm happy that she landed on her feet with AEW, and she really deserves all the respect in the world. I love her.
No question. I couldn't agree more. Now, we talked about Tully Blanchard earlier. How come Tessa Blanchard, his daughter, can't get a look with the major promotion? Because I know she has a bad rep. She said some unfortunate things, but boy, I think her talent is overwhelming.
I've never seen her work.
Really?
No.
Oh, she's brilliant.
Yeah.
She'd be a
I
great.
mean, I keep hearing that, but I haven't seen her. So um, I mean, I've heard, obviously, it's not, you're not the only person to ever say how great she is. I just haven't seen her work.
We see. I'd like to see her.
I met her one time, and she's a lovely girl. Of course, I've known her forever from growing up, but I've never seen her work.
Well, I'd like to see her against Ashley, against Charlotte, because I think physically she can compete with her, give that impression visually. I think the one thing about Ashley is she's such a great athlete and looks the part but she's great at selling, so she gives her opponents that credibility. But it would be nice if more came in with that built in. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those marquee matches. I don't know the reasons. I don't know why she's not there. I've heard the same kind of stuff you have, but I mean, I take everything like that with a grain of salt, which you have to in this business, because she could be the most lovely woman in the world, and people have some personal agenda against them. But no, I've heard she's really good, and I think it'd be great. See a Blanchard Flair match. Who wouldn't, right?
You gotta get excited about saving people all those dollars. They can limousine ride and jet fly now with that extra cash.
And they can style and profile with a quick 10-minute phone call right now to 425-0105.
That's 425-0105. Woo!
SaveWithConrad.com.
Let's jump ahead to talking about some of the modern day wrestlers. And I want to start with Shinsuke Nakamura.
Mhm.
Now, last week, we didn't know who the Intercontinental Champ was. Turns out it's Nakamura. Now, I had high hopes for the guy when he came over from New Japan, and he's a great talent, but he's kind of wound up in the middle of the card.
He has, but it's not because of lack of talent. That kid has got a ton of talent. I mean, and he's the kind of guy that, and he's legitimately tough. You know that, Mark, right?
Oh, for sure.
No, legitimately tough. He's a
Right.
real tough kid. You'd never know it. He's so kind and polite. Just like Asuka's a lady and a half, but she's tough. The kids that come over there from Japan that have been brought into the business the hard way are always going to be incredibly tough mentally, and they're going to be good athletes, and they're going to be technical. And this kid can wrestle technically. He can wrestle wide open. He can punch and kick. He's smart in the ring. He carries himself like a champion. I think a lot of
Why do some guys like him get way over in NXT, but don't get over to the same degree in WWE?
they don't get the same push.
Think it's that simple?
Yep. If you gave Nakamura Paul Heyman, you know what I mean, and refined his gimmick to the point where it would be really a demographic that everybody could deal with, Nakamura could get over. He'd have to change his style around a little bit, but he's got the ability and the talent to do that. But he could endless. Well, it might be too late now because he's been here so long, but it all depends on how you come in. But I just don't. One thing he has stayed who he is. I mean, some of the guys have been 5 different people. You know what I mean? I look at Seth. He's been. I love the architect. I thought that was great. And then it was the disciple, and now it's the drip or some damn thing, and now I'm not sure what he's doing. But I think the people that stick with one, when they find their groove, if they stick with one, they stay with it, and they're going to enjoy the most success. And it's not just about marketing, but you want to be viewed in the eyes of the fans as someone that has just stayed who you are. And every time you change, it's because you're not happy with, or the office isn't happy with what you're doing.
Now, when you say Nakamura could refine his gimmick, what do you mean? What would you add to it or change about it?
Well, if he just come over, I would, the first couple of times out, I'd have him in a suit, and I'd have a guy like Heyman talking for him. And then I gradually would start to work, and I would make sure that he was working in the ring with guys that were technically good, where he could really display his wear. And he has a lot of, and then I would go from there. I'm not positive he could be, the biggest star of all time. I didn't say that, but I think that he could mean a lot more to the show than he does, because I think he's got a ton of talent.
No,
And by the way, he means a lot to me. When he's on, I watch. So, I don't turn him off.
now you mentioned talking. Is it tough for a Japanese wrestler who can't speak English to get past the language barrier?
Yes.
Does the lack of promo ability hurt, and how bad does
Yes.
it hurt him?
I think it's hurt him. Yeah, because it's not skill. It's like Asuka. If Asuka was a world class talker, God only knows where Asuka would be. I mean, she's had a hell of a run, but Asuka to me is the kind of person, unless she'd asked for time off, that should never not be on TV.
Well, and they kind of made her into a cartoon character, for better or worse, didn't they? With the kind of I don't know how to describe the way she talks, but it's kind of sing-songy and, like I said, cartoony.
Well, because that's the way they write. That's the way that they feel that she can come across. Does that make sense? Rather than trying to put together a dead serious promo that it's hard for her probably to say in English, they give her short lines that are humorous or. I don't look at that as being a cartoon because she's so damn good in the ring. I mean, to me, Asuka can say anything or do anything. And she's so damn good in the ring, it doesn't matter. Because whatever she says, people forget about it the minute she's out there kicking someone's ass, which she can do.
Now, we mentioned that Nakamura is the Intercontinental Champ, and we didn't even remember who that was last week. The Intercontinental belt doesn't mean what it used to, does it?
Well, they made such a big deal of it. I think Pat was the first guy to ever have it, and they made such a big deal for years. You don't hear much about it now, no. But it's obviously it's a very prestigious. Anybody wants to be the champion, but no, it's not. I don't think it's recognized and is highly thought of because I think they moved it around a lot. One of the reasons that Roman is so over is they've left the title on Roman for a period of time.
Yep.
Jesus, yeah, and it's well deserved. But keeping the title for a period of time is what makes you different. Just dropping around back and forth, figuring out what works one day and what doesn't work the next, trying to get somebody over. I mean, it's like I said that night that Ashley had just won the title, and I can't think of the little girl's name. It's so cute with the mask.
Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki. When Nikki crossbody her after that world class match, crossbody her 1, 2, 3. I couldn't figure out what in God's green earth they could possibly be thinking.
Yeah, I agree. The belt needs to stick with people to make the belt mean something.
Aside from making Nikki, who I think is lovely, this is not personal. What did that do for the belt? And boy, you talk about going from who did Charlotte wrestle that night for the title?
Ray Ripley.
Rhea Ripley tore the joint down. Tore it down. Rhea can work her ass off. And then to have Nikki dive off the top rope on her mask, you've taken a great match, literally a great match, and given it a cartoon finish. For what?
No, I'm with you. And I
tell me one thing they accomplished for that.
They didn't. Nothing.
Yeah. I still can't get over that.
Now, when there's 2 world titles like they have in WWE, the Universal.
I think I said something about that too that pissed some people off.
They got the Universal title and the WWE title. And that, when you have 2 world titles, then the Intercontinental title isn't secondary, it's tertiary. It means so much less when it's third on the list.
Well, yeah, but you have to remember this, Mark. If you're going to have 2 brands, you got to have 2 champions. I get that. See, in the old days, you could have 2 brands, but there was only one champion. And the champion would, and to me, if I was booking this, the champion would work both brands.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I'm saying? But then they don't have the opportunity. See, the minute that Roman beats Big E, it diminishes the Raw title.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, I have to check who their champions are. So that says.
Well, it's Big E now. Brock having it No, now Brock doesn't have Roman's, does he?
No, Brock won. See, there we go. The confusion. Brock has Big E's title.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So now another
The
big,
champs are Brock and Roman.
yeah, another big match with Brock and Roman. That's money.
Well, but how do you do that and keep the titles separate, Nate?
Well, you don't do it for a long time. You know, we're talking about WrestleMania or something like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, but then, like I said, every time they combine the titles, they split them apart again, and I think that devalues as well.
Well, it might devalue to guys like you and me who watch it, but to the bank, to their bank account and the WWE's success with huge promotions and the way they do it, you can never knock the success that it's brought them. So being the NWA champion, I went from territory to territory to territory, and you hope that you left the place in a better place than you got there when you arrived. But there's so much money involved in this sell market. I'm sure if they're making decisions that are based on what's financially right for the WWE. And keep in mind, the kids are making a lot of money, so there shouldn't be anybody bitching.
Now, I want to talk about a kid named Braun Breaker, who's in NXT, and he's Rick Steiner's son, which is so obvious. Nate,
Yeah.
you've seen him. He looks
Yeah.
like him, works like him.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Robbie's kid.
Yeah. You guys
You
great.
get him.
Oh, God, we've talked to him before. I think it's great. I've only seen him twice, but to me, he should be on the roster right now.
I think so too. And like I said, the resemblance is just uncanny. Is WWE doing the right thing, not exploiting the kid's connection to Rick and Scott? I used to think they should do that, but this way seems to be working.
Yeah, I haven't heard that it's not, and I don't know why. I don't know the answer to why they're not either. But if nobody's changing it around, and it's a whole different name, a whole different situation, and the kid is a hell of an athlete. So Jesus, I mean, I guess he's only had like 20 or 25 or 30 matches, but to me, he's one of those guys that he kind of reminds me of Kurt, and the fact that he doesn't blow up. He just keeps going. He's strong, and that's hard to do when you're young, to get in there. But I would definitely give him a break on one of the rosters and get him going.
Well,
I haven't heard of interviews, so I don't know what his interview's like, but
they're okay. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he's a little bit green in that regard, but they're not terrible. And I got to tell you, I'm told he works very safe. And again, talking about what we did before with a guy like Brock, I like that physical, heavy kind of style. I
Yeah,
like when I
I
can
do too.
suspend disbelief, and
I do
with him,
too.
I can suspend disbelief.
Yeah, I do too. Be safe. I love it.
Less super kicks, more suplexes, Nate. What do you think?
Less super kicks, more suplexes.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what's work I really like is that Gable kid.
Oh my God, but I think his time's come and gone. I think he's been in the middle or the bottom middle for too long. And I think he's
Well,
great.
I don't know that he'll ever go past the bottom middle, but I think he's a great hand to have on a show.
No question.
Yeah,
No question.
he can work with anybody. And the kid, that match he had with what's Randy's partner's name? Riddle. Yeah, that was phenomenal. Yeah.
Now, is Braun Breaker a future world champ, or have we not seen enough of him to say that yet?
Haven't seen enough of him to say that yet. But I certainly would be, if I was Vince, I'd be really hands-on with him because he could be a big star.
Nobody throws a suplex like a Steiner, do they? You
No.
put a few of those.
Yeah, but actually they're very safe. I never had a problem with them. Rick Steiner used to give me the best backdrop I ever took in my life next to Animal.
Now,
Some guys just know how to time you and how to put you up the right way.
Now, we're going to talk about one more guy, and we've not seen him for a while, and Elias, who's
Yes.
a Pittsburgh guy from Plum, Pat McAfee's neighborhood. And again, he's been off TV, and that's a shame because I think he's a real talent. He's a big guy with some skills.
Yeah, I do too. Is he injured? He's had some injury issues.
I don't know.
I don't know.
For a while, they just had him out there with the guitar doing his songs, and it got over. But after a while, that's all they wanted him to do. And I think that sort of thing has a shelf life.
It does. You know that he graduated from Penn State.
I know.
Yeah, you know what he paid for his college career? Independent wrestling.
Yeah, he wrestled at this IWC promotion right outside
Yeah.
of Pittsburgh. I saw him wrestle many times. He was,
Yeah.
what was his
No,
name back then? He was Logan Shulo, and his
yeah.
nickname was Heavy Metal Jesus.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's got a gift to playing the guitar. Anybody can do that kind of stuff. I mean, some of the best stuff I ever see on TV was The Rock serenading Vicky Guerrero.
You're right. That was great. Like, when a guy like Elias disappears from TV for a while for whatever reason, how much does that hurt and how hard is it for him to regenerate his momentum?
It all depends on the person.
Well, what kind of chance do you give him?
Of becoming a megastar again.
Well, I'm not sure he ever was a megastar.
Okay,
Can he get back in the mix?
I can always get back in the mix. Yes, most certainly. He's got talent.
Now, you never played a musical instrument, did you, Nate?
No.
Because you could have been Ricky Rhodes, the singing cowboy.
Yes, I know. But I couldn't sing.
Well,
Rambling Ricky Rhodes.
right. Sorry. I should know my history better. There's a couple current wrestlers I want to discuss briefly. And one is Orange Cassidy from AEW.
Yeah.
I know you met him. What's your take on him? The slacker gimmick, the lazy guy gimmick. I like him.
I like
But
it.
once you've seen him, you've seen him.
Yeah, but whether that's just it. He's unique, though. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I like the gimmick. I mean, but that's what he stands out. The reason we're talking about him because he got your attention. He's got my attention. I love the kid, and he's
No,
really a nice guy. But I love the gimmick.
no, I'm not being critical. I'm just not sure where you go from here with the gimmick.
I don't know the answer to that either. But I like it, and I think he can do it for a couple more years. He's just an example of a guy you don't have to have on TV every week.
Oh, no, put it this way. You don't have to have him work every week. I think
Yeah.
the character,
Yeah. Oh, a character on TV, but I meant
the
working.
character on TV is excellent TV,
Yeah.
no question.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned Chad Gable of WWE last week. You like him. What do you
Yeah.
like about him? He's an Olympic wrestler, a lot of credibility, Greco-Roman in 2012 in London.
Yeah, and he never wrestled in college. Isn't that amazing?
Not right.
Yeah, I know. I said, where'd you wrestle collegiately? I didn't. This kid, but first of all, I'm so impressed with the guys that are classy, and yeah, I'm just gonna say this, and I'm gonna, this is the truth. When I was at my best, I'd have guys throw up before they worked with me. I intimidated them that much. No, that's what I swear to God. And I've had guys come over to me and say, "Thank you so very much." The night, my last match before I went to retire WrestleMania, I mean, that's what bothers me about this whole thing. Not turning the subject around. After WrestleMania, they brought me to Raw, and every writer on the show, from Brian to Ed, everybody, asked me to autograph the format for the show that as I've walked out of the building. The people have been calling me Mr. Flair my whole life. That's this kid Gable. He reminds me of how people used to treat me when I was whatever I was. And he's a great talent. His problem is going to be his size, his whole career, but he can make a hell of a living. He can be Dolph, and he can work for 20 years and get rich. And he's entertaining. And every time they try to do something, I didn't like the shortage either, but guess what? He's back on TV because he's good. He's damn good.
I think he's good, and I think he should be used better. I think he has that kind of credibility. But
I do too.
I didn't like the Shorty G stuff either because once you see that, you can't unsee it. That gets stuck in a fan's mind.
Yeah, but now they got him a good situation again. I don't. They bounce around so much, but here's the important thing and the good thing for him is he's still there. And if you can be just a really good utility player, you're going to make money in this business and be in it for a long time. And if he gets the mindset that he can live with that, and maybe someday they'll put him up the ladder, but if he can just stay in the middle, he's making millions. He will.
how small is too small?
I don't know the answer to that.
Because he's 5'8". I think that's on the lower limit. Like this guy, Jonathan Gresham, I don't you've ever seen him. He's 5'4", and he can work, and he's very credible with the way he works.
Mhm.
But I just don't know how small is too small.
Well, you have to remember, now we got Brock and Roman. So, who's going to believe that guy can wrestle Brock? Who's going to believe he can handle Roman? Makes
Yeah,
sense.
but we had stuff like CM Punk against Undertaker, which kind of beggars belief in the size difference, but it worked.
I never thought, did they have a good match?
Yeah, they did. And don't get me wrong, I think that match and that matchup is the exception and not the rule.
Yeah.
And like we've often
I didn't see the match.
podcast began,
Yeah.
I think it's good that Big is coming back to wrestling. I like guys like Brock and Roman and McIntyre and Lashley being on top.
No, I like it a lot too. But it's not, this is not taken away from the smaller guys, but it's just hard, it's like when Brian Danielson wrestled Brock, it was just a lot to look at and hard. And then, but Brock gave Brian a decent match, which he didn't have to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get it.
And Danielson took all the bumps. Like I say, he takes crazy bumps. So every formula is different, and
I'm an old guy. And I like the underdog story in wrestling, but sometimes when a small guy fights a big guy, it's supposed to be a simulation of a real fight, and I just can't believe it. I just look at it right away, and I've tuned out emotionally.
That's a good point. I mean, sometimes I'll watch the show, and then if I see something that I just can't stand, I go, okay. I mean, it's everybody's got a different taste. Everybody's got a different opinion. That's why we're here today.
Now, let's talk about a couple current wrestlers. First off, from WWE, The Miz. You got to respect the guy's longevity, and he's a
Yeah.
classic snarky heel.
Mm-hmm. I think the world of him personally.
What makes him good?
What makes him good is the fact that he never stops wanting to be good. You give whatever they give him, whether it's, chicken shit or chicken salad, he makes it chicken salad. And to have that kind of a run, and to think that he was really mistreated by several people whose name I won't mention at this time, when he come up with the way he came in, because that's just the way people were at that point in time in business. They don't get away with it anymore now. But to see him go all the way through this and enjoy this, and I, 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 I think he decided that you know that he was going to make a career out of this, no matter how much he had to go through, humiliation wise.
On age, because you're speaking about him being bullied, correct?
Yes, terrible.
Well, how much
So
did you think that had to do with Miz being a reality TV star? Was it tough for him to gain acceptance from the boys at first because of where he came from?
yes, that's exactly what it was. He wasn't some super athlete with a super athletic background. He's just a guy that wanted to be a wrestler. But he pulled it off, and I'm telling you, they hand him the work that when you work through, they hand you your script or whatever it is, right? And he will rehearse it from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until he goes on air. He walks around. I see him in the hallway, talking to himself, applying, and then he'll go to his producer and say, "Can I change this to this?" I mean, he is a perfectionist, and that's why it's good.
No, I think his acting skills, which obviously is what translates to promo skills now, are really good. And
Mhm.
the one thing about him, he's never really been a babyface. I think he tried about 10 years ago, but it didn't take. He's one of those guys that being a babyface just isn't going to work, correct?
Uh, well, he's just a much better heel. He's learned how to be naturally. I think it's more acting because he's not an arrogant guy in real life. I think it's more about He's learned how to pull that character off. He's not in any way, shape, or form a prick, which is, to be a good heel, you have to have some prick in you, I think. Um, but he's just, I'm proud of him, and once again, I can't say enough good about him. I'll tell the stories if we get feedback on this. I'd be glad to tell you how bad it was for him. But you know what? He persevered, and he's a better man for it.
Uh, Now you
And
mentioned he wasn't.
and laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh, big time. I mean, what a long career, and he's
Yep.
been middle or near the top of the card, so he's getting real money, no question.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned before he didn't come to WWE as this heralded athlete. He was a reality TV star. Yet I think he's become a fairly athletic and competent worker. It's a lot of the basics. I'm not sure he ever's had a 5-star match. In fact, I know he hasn't, but he's credible.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know what his background was, but I don't know whether he was an athlete in high school or not. I've never asked him, but the reality show entrance was what the guys fed on, with several guys.
Now, he's doing a tag match with his wife, Maurice,
Mhm.
and they've done a few angles together. That's at the Royal Rumble. As you can see, it's Edge and Beth Phoenix, who are also
Yeah, I
a
love
married
it.
couple against
Yeah. Hey,
Miz and Maurice. Is it a
Yeah.
good idea to bring your real life onto TV with wrestling?
well, let me tell you something. I love Beth and Edge. I talk to them all the time, and I think Beth looks incredible,
Yep, for sure.
as does Maurice.
Sure does.
But you have to remember, Beth was a great worker.
Yep.
Okay, so it's gonna be exciting because whatever Maurice can or can't do, and I can't remember seeing her that much. She'd always been beautiful, but I can't remember her skill level. Um, and you watch, they will find a way to make that a very entertaining and a very cool part of the Royal Rumble. And
Yep.
Edge is just special to me. I love that kid.
Yeah,
Anybody can have a ladder match with me when I'm 56 years old, and I just said to him, I said, look at Edge. I can take any bump you give me, but I don't know. I do not trust myself to be pushing you over in a ladder. So I just make sure before I do something, you put the ladder where it's supposed to be. So Vince doesn't tell me I've killed his top star. Hey, and once I told Edge, just do something to start the match where I can get my blade out, brother. We'll make this thing right.
you love the blade, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I'm really good at it, too. Yeah! When he jumped off of that, I said, what would be cool that you haven't done? He said, well, I've never jumped off the ladder onto a guy at a table outside. I said, let's do it. So Ashley and her volleyball team were there. They came down from college to Raleigh, and so the table happened to be right where Ashley was sitting and all her friends. And so Edge put me out there, and man, I tell you, this is real life experience. When a 245-pound guy jumps off a 12-foot ladder on top of you, when the table breaks, which it did, and when you bottom out, you think you've landed on cement. I went, it's trying to figure out if I was still alive. And one of Ashley's girlfriends, she was a middle hitter, was going, "Get up, Nate!" I said, "Nate," to myself, "Get up, Nate! Come on, Nate! Dad, come on!" I was really a highlight for me to have Ashley there and her teammates. But I mean, Edge was just incredible, man. I can't say enough about that guy. He's just shit. He's a wonderful human being.
Let's talk about Dustin Rhodes, who is still going strong at 52 in AEW. Dustin isn't his dad, but his career's been very good, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But no one's been Dusty Rhodes' career. So
Right.
that's nothing against Dustin. Dustin done very well.
Now, how tough is it to be Dusty Rhodes' son, especially his first son, breaking in at a time when Dusty was still very visible in the business?
Tough. Just as tough as it was for Ashley with me. As far removed as I have been from wrestling, I'm as far removed as I had been when she started. It was very tough.
What were your
As
impressions of
it
Dustin's?
as is any as is any second generation kid whose parent is good.
Oh yeah, I mean, talk about your tough act to follow. And I remember when Dustin broke in, he did some stuff with Kendall Windham. I think they were the Texas
Yeah.
Outlaws or something like that. What were your impressions of Dustin very early? Because there was the impression that Dusty, who was the booker then, was going to push him no matter what.
Mark, to be honest, I don't really remember that well. But he won't be the first booker that pushed their son. Sonny, you know what I mean?
Bill Watts and
And
Eric Watts at the same time, pretty
exactly,
much.
yeah, yep, exactly. But at the end of the day, Dustin pulled it off. That's all
No
that matters.
question.
Yeah, he's had a fabulous career, and he's still going strong.
I love.
And more than anything, he seems to be very happy with it.
Well, yeah, no question. He's training wrestlers now, which we'll talk about in just a
Yeah.
second. But I want to talk about when he was Gold Dust because I loved Gold Dust. It was
Yeah,
a mid card act, but it was a great mid card act. It was something very different. And Dustin didn't seem to have a problem doing what was at the time a controversial gimmick.
no, I know but he was not just good at it; he was great at it.
Yep.
It was controversial, but that's it's only controversial that people think like that. Okay. At that time, I've seen a lot worse go down, and the kid made it happen. He was great at it. And when Dusty first called me and told me, he said, watch Dustin tonight, man. I went, okay. And I turned and I went, shit, this is pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
I've never asked Dustin. I bet his dad came up with that.
I don't know. It wouldn't shock me if he did as well. But I love the Gold Dust gimmick.
Yeah.
If it was controversial, it was because some people were narrow-minded. But I was told there were some wrestlers that refused to work with him because of the character's connotations. Do you know if that's true?
I've never heard that.
I know one who did for sure, but maybe I'll
Who's
say
that?
who that was in St. Louis when we're shooting.
Who is it?
Can't tell you.
Okay.
You have
Right.
your secrets, I have mine.
Well, my secret, I'll tell you, first of all, you know what my secret is. So I don't know what yours is.
I'll tell you after the show.
Okay. All right.
It's
Save it for St. Louis. What? Save it for St. Louis.
That's right. That's right. We'll tell all in St. Louis.
Woo!
Still got some general admission tickets left, by the way. I think Jim Hurd should have to pay to get in.
I do too. Almost definitely.
He should have to either pay to get in or dress as a gladiator.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
And open his mouth. The first 3 words should be, "I'm sorry, Rick."
there you go. I agree. How would you rate Dustin's work? I think he matured into a very, very good worker. His dad wasn't a classic worker per se, although he knew exactly what to do. But Dustin turned out to be different in the ring. What do you like about his work?
He can do anything. He's very versatile. He can work big. He can work small. And that if you know what I mean by that, he can work with a big guy. He can work with a small guy. If he can't do it, he can take it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
If he can't physically do that move, technically, he can take anything from anybody, and that's more important sometimes than being on the offense. I think he's really good.
Dustin runs a wrestling academy now, and I'm sure he's great at that, no question. He gets it. He gets the business.
Oh, he does, most definitely. Most definitely. And he's respectful. He's nice. Cody and Dusty raised those boys right. They're just really both incredible young men.
Now, we talk about how some wrestlers don't even know how to punch and kick. Dustin throws a great punch, doesn't he?
Yep.
One of the
Yes,
best.
he
I
does.
think it's his trademark almost.
Yep. It certainly does.
What's it take to throw a great punch?
For me, it took hanging a string, which Ray Stevens told me to do, in a doorway, and hitting it until it doesn't move. And then you tell
Wow.
the guy. Then you tell the guy before you get in the ring or in the match when you slow down, don't move, because everybody, you see a fist coming at you wide open. Your inclination is, in real life, of course, you're gonna flinch. I need you to hold still or I'm going to bust your jaw.
How many guys did hold still, though, and how many guys flinched?
No, after the people that worked for me after I was a proven factor, nobody flinched. You know what I mean? But the first time around, a guy's gonna flinch because I can make it look like I'm killing you.